Welcome to Statesman, the podcast where we explore all 50 states with our 5 senses. If you've come here for history, we'll give you some. But most of this is half-baked opinion that is never intended to harm or offend anyone. Today, we paint an anatomical and unsexy portrait of America's frozen nipple. Situated high up in the upper mid-chest, roughly equal distances between the North Pole and the equator, don't you know? The Flicker's Tail State offers a God-touched landscape of flora and fauna with rich natural resources buried underneath its turgid areola. A hard nipple is a hard nipple. Ain't nothing fancy about it, and most of us got at least one or two. But when we're talking about extracting precious liquids from its murky core, we have to ensure that we're doing it consensually and responsibly. It's quite unfortunate that within the 70,761 square mile nipple, a large 2,147 mile steel straw was built across it against the passionate stand of the environmental and scientific communities by corporate interests that held knowledge of the risks it posed. And lo, the story goes that the greed of evil men succeeded once again, despite the efforts and interests of good people, for by 2019, the Peace Garden state was soaked in over 1.4 million liters of crude oil that continues to pollute the wetlands of the Rough Riders' paradise. It's a sad story for a piece of the body that makes most people so happy when lathered in an untainted and fluffy green and brown whipped cream of leaves and nutritious soil, and enjoyed instead by our blinking wet mouths to our visual cortex. It's the state where liberty and union, now and forever, one and inseparable. We welcome you to North Dakota. I'm your older statesman, Tim Ferrari, along with my junior statesman, Anthony Rossi.
In this state, it's illegal to fall asleep with your shoes on, Stu. Guess you won't be going there.
And Stuart Highcar.
North Dakota? No codas in this one. No pauses at all. We'll be talking till the end, I swear.
Anthony, damn, you totally ousted Stu as a blatant alcoholic.
Wow. Early on, too. Shot me down. Bang, bang. Speaking of bang, bang, this is going to be a comedy podcast.
Oh, yeah. Will somebody be doing a character? We'll find out.
I really hope not.
I have a question about doo-doo. It occurred to me earlier today.
Huh?
How many squares of toilet paper do you guys use per wipe?
What? Hold on. Where did we get into
doo-doo
this?
come from?
Doo-doo as in this show. This show is doo-doo sometimes.
I see. Yeah, I guess, it depends on the movement. I have found myself as few as 4 and as many as 12, depending on what's going on back there. But
12 per wipe?
Again, I don't want to get into the exact mechanics of how I clean my bottom.
Well, that's what I was thinking of, because I was taking a nice doo-doo today and realized that I do specifically 4 squares.
Every time?
I count 4 squares, and then I fold all of the squares over to 1 square.
Just like a recess favorite, you're a 4-square kid.
I am a 4-square kid, and I'm always king.
Yikes.
How are you, Anthony? How are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I haven't counted. That's my answer. I'm just so lost in the moment, My week's been really great, actually. This weekend, I've seen Big Frida at Park West, as we discussed on our New Orleans episode and
Louisiana episode, I think.
Hey,
but what is it?
I'm going to reduce it down. We all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Big Frida's straight from New Orleans, and it was a total blast. Low Cut Connie was also there, one of my favorite bands to see live. Great show.
I've got a question for you. Big Frida, of course, famous for being one of the leaders of the bounce music craze. But
yes.
What time did you bounce from the venue? Did you miss any encore?
No, I stayed all the way until the bitter end. It went late. Usually Chicago concerts end around 11 max, right. And it was like a 12:30 exit.
Oh, wow.
And my ears were ringing. But guys, speaking of shows, last night, Fever Dreams Public Decay of Affection sold out. And then they added more tickets and we sold out again.
Yeah.
How wonderful is that?
Up.
Yeah, everybody's talking about this show. Everybody's buying tickets. Everybody's bringing their own lawn chairs and fake tickets so that they can sit front row and still get scanned in. Anthony, how many more chances do people have to see the show as of this date, November 16th? 19th.
November 19th, you've got exactly 2 more chances to see it. And there's a high likelihood these shows are going to sell out. So please go on and grab your tickets right now. Turn off this episode and go grab tickets.
Don't turn off the episode, but do go buy tickets.
All right, fine. Pull up a separate window.
And
you
of course,
multitask.
Is there a discount code or anything associated with those tickets?
Skeleton, all caps. Half price tickets. Just like the half of the body that a skeleton takes up. That's scientifically correct.
I don't know if that
maybe for me.
Okay. Stuart, how was your week?
Oh boy, quite the week for me, guys. Me and the girlfriend stayed in a lot. We watched a lot of SVU this weekend. New episode of SVU with well, here's the thing. It's human trafficking, right? They're bringing in thousands of people from the Asian mainland into New York to do sort of like crime mafia stuff. But thank God, by the end of it, Olivia Benson sort of fixed the whole thing, figured everything out. And Ice-T's, heads up, guys, wearing shirts that don't fit him now.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
He's wearing button-up long-sleeve shirts that are stretching at every button, top to bottom. And I don't know who in the wardrobe department is letting it happen. I don't know why they don't let it out just a little bit. Anthony, what?
Are his North Dakotas peeping through? Stu, I'm surprised that you're enjoying this program so much. Usually it's hard for you to focus on SVU. You're so focused on STU.
Oh, myself?
Yeah.
I'm a big ego hound, baby. Sometimes my eyes cross when the TV's on just to get a look at my own nose. Tim, but I mean, I've been watching people solve crimes, but what have you been doing with your times this week, I mean?
Well, I'm on my calendar right now, and I see that I've been doing absolutely nothing but working all the time.
Ooh, like a dog.
We had a record earlier this week that was a lost episode, our first lost episode that none of our listeners will ever be able to listen to.
Never,
and
not a single piece.
Such a shame, because I will say, and I won't say whose character it was, but there was a character introduced that I think would have changed the face of entertainment.
By crashing it into the ground.
No, I think it would have. Hollywood would have been fighting each other tooth and nail to get this guy signed to a 3-picture deal.
Oh man. Well, it was a lost episode. There were some really great moments in that, but something tells me that the next time we cover that state, it will be even better.
Oh, nice, Anthony.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also got stood up this week, but I don't want to change the topic quite yet. If you're ready to not move on.
Whoa, hold on.
Well, we stood up. I didn't know this.
No, we lost a whole night when this podcast was gone, but you lost the night when someone didn't show up to a date?
Well, yeah, it really wasn't like a show up. It was more like, you make plans and then it's never like, it never comes together in the end. There's there's the plan made that's kind of nebulous, and then you try to confirm and it's
Right. So would you say that this is not like the David Wayne comedy movie They Came Together? You didn't come together.
We didn't come together. In fact, we missed each other by a long shot.
Trains in the night.
Well, is this the kind of situation where you're going to be pursuing more plans in the future, or is this the one blown chance?
Not with each other, I don't think.
Oh,
hate to hear it, but at least you've been stacking that fat green.
Absolutely, man. When she sees the kind of Havarti cheese you've got stringing out of your wallet, oh boy.
Jesus Christ.
Talk about shame.
We're going to be talking about green a lot today, I have a feeling, given that this state is full of it.
Wildlife.
God,
the Hulk.
Why don't we introduce our guest?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
She's sat through enough of this.
Okay, so, she's frankly an idiot. Please welcome Carly Schirber.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. And that is my own self-description.
Yes.
So I don't want to.
Sorry for calling you that. I feel even bad.
I'm just wiping away tears on the other side of the microphone. I do want to apologize and share my condolences about the last episode. I'm actually looking on the wall across from Anthony's head at a 8.5 by 11 relic.
That's right.
If you don't mind me describing it quick, it's blue Sharpie that says the lost episode, ellipses, some mountains, and 5th place, 4th place, 3 second place from Mario Kart. and Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, Stu wouldn't know anything about that because he was out of the room while...
I was out of the room, but whatever character that would have reshaped the entire idea of entertainment probably had something to do with that piece of shitty printer paper that you're looking at now, Carly.
And
so
listeners,
now the bar for me is reshaping entertainment, which is very fun.
Yep.
and listeners, if you're trying to figure out what state it was, the mountain should be a big clue. Take a look at our list and tell us which state that we haven't covered has mountains.
And it's
That's
the
right.
same mountain, and they're all going up.
Okay,
They're all getting bigger.
I had one PNG of a mountain to work. Whoever this character was who reshaped entertainment from the ground up, the topography entirely changed, obviously was also having trouble with these topography PNGs of mountains. But let's forget about these mountains and move to the great northern peaks of North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Carly, you're from there.
I'm not. I'm from Minneapolis. My parents were born and raised in Bismarck.
So you would go to Bismarck a lot as a kid?
Yes, yeah. Summers to visit grandparents, friends from high school, and a number of relatives. My parents are each one of 6 kids. So plenty of aunts and uncles to go around.
Good God.
And they're all in North Dakota right now?
Some have retired to other states. There's a few still there, but at least their families, their little offshoot nuclear families grew up there. And from generations.
Would you call North Dakota a home away from home, possibly? How often did you go there as a youngin?
It would be summers to visit my mom's parents. So
North Dakota summers.
they're hot ones and very flat.
Is it
hot and flat?
I know nothing about the weather of North Dakota. So like, is it just like super arid, or is there like a little bit of?
It's Great Plains, so it's
gotcha.
It's some humidity. It gets sticky. It's like a sticky Midwest summer. It's comparable to Chicago.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Great Plains, something you used to be able to say about Boeing. Jeez.
Jeez.
All right.
Let me ask you, Carly. You grew up in Minneapolis. How far is that from North Dakota?
About a 7-hour drive. I don't know the mileage.
So how is that drive? I assume it's flat.
Yeah, my dad is so sweet. My parents are fantastic. They really equipped us on the road trips. And I also am thankful for it because it's made me, a good car person.
Yeah.
Like I like
good
road
traveler.
trips. Like I do have fond memories from it. Like before we didn't have a DVD in our big family car, like a DVD player.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he would take a tiny little screen with like the big back, like a Panasonic or whatever. And then he constructed this like wooden thing that would keep it between the front two seats and then jumper cable it around so we could watch movies. This was like...
I cannot imagine this is road legal in any way.
Okay, I'm really...
You have 1,000-pound Panasonic CRT television.
It was tiny. I mean, this is like maybe 1999, 2000s.
When you were all getting your bags packed for North Dakota, were you excited? Was there excitement brewing, or did it almost feel like more of an obligation?
It was more of like a family tradition, so there was a reverence to it, and it is fun. It was really exciting to see my grandparents, and it just was something else. It was fun.
Right. I'd imagine you have also, with that many aunts and uncles, an absolute cavalcade of cousins, correct?
Tons. 30 in the 30s.
Well, coming from
on each side.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and now they all have kids, and I'm like almost closer in age. Like my oldest cousin, for reference, is like I think she's in her 50s.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and she's not old. She's
No,
very
she's
cool.
probably cool, and I bet she likes podcasts.
Yep.
So what are some of the differences that you've noticed between like the cultures and the people like in Minnesota and in North Dakota, and then finally in your current home, the tee-hee-hee capital of the United States, Chicago, Illinois?
Haha, fun town. There is a an upper Midwest sort of reservation, about passive aggression. There is a sort of Minnesota nice mentality that does extend to North Dakota. There is sort of, in any sort of conservative state, there is a bit of, a little bit of and I want to say this in a way that's tender to where I'm from, but it's not a blue state.
Yes.
So there is that difference with Chicago and then Minnesota, which is kind of Illinois' little sister when it comes to politics. But really kind, family-oriented, sturdy, rigid. I was just making a joke that the state song of North Dakota sounds Catholic. So I was raised Catholic, so there is sort of a very like devout sort of properness to all of it.
Politically, that's really interesting that you've kind of had experience with, like, I don't know how far right North Dakota necessarily is, but I do think of it as a red state.
It is.
And then Minnesota being like kind of the purple state, like in terms of flipping on different issues
Certainly.
and voting on both sides of the line. And then now here in Chicago, which is kind of as blue as you can be.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling between those, do you have a preference?
Oh, well, being local in Chicago, I would say it's my favorite city, but I am thankful to have grown up in Minnesota, and North Dakota is kind of a little more of a random state. I don't know a ton of people with roots there.
Yeah.
And kind of is a fun landing place and almost a historical perspective almost as well.
Yeah.
I do honestly, you said you don't know a lot of people like from there. And I mean, of course I agree. It's a very ill-populated state. It's a very small population. And I also, to be honest, I don't know if you guys have this same sort of stereotype in your head, but I think of North Dakota as like front to back entire state is just a national park. Like I don't think of stuff being in it. I just think of giant open plains.
And it's different from South Dakota, which really is a big state park. It's a lot more homey, I guess. It's a lot
North
more, like,
Dakota is?
Yeah, it's a lot more like community based. There aren't too many state parks.
No.
We used to go and visit like little like we saw like the world's largest sandhill crane statue that's in between Minneapolis, and like the world's biggest ball of twine is in between. I don't know if it's necessarily in North Dakota or Minnesota, but like that was on the drive, so it's like kitschier than that, and very German.
I want to ask you, you spent a lot of summers going to North Dakota as a kid. How long were you there, and what would you do mostly to spend your time? Like, were you stuck inside, or did you get to go outside and get trapped in a river or some exciting adventure like that?
Oh yeah, we did do river stuff. We would we would spend a lot of time. We would stay at my grandparents' condo. So we would do a lot of hanging out. They had this big toy closet, and so we would just play with all their old like knickknacks. Like, what are those tiny things that are like colorful circles with the little pegs, and then you just stack them up?
Wait,
like just like ancient plastic toys.
You're just talking about like a baby's stacking toy. Is that
kind
what you
of.
mean?
I'll pull it up. It's specific, and I can remember the smell of like just exactly right, which we'll maybe get to later.
Yeah, I think Tim might be bringing some toys from your grandma's
it would just
closet.
kind of be like whatever the cousins like would want to do. Like we would go visit my dad's older sister, and they have a boat, so we would go on the river, and we would like go swimming and on the sand. And there's like tall sandbars, so there's like places where you could just like stand. So we would do like lake river culture. And we would go eat at Kroll's Diner, which is sort of like a fast casual North Dakota mainstay. And we would eat at Big Boy, which is like sort of a Midwest chain. This one's called Big Boy. I know they have like different names elsewhere. So it'd be a lot of visiting. We would go to my Uncle Wayne's house, who was like a well-known dentist in Bismarck.
Nice.
Yeah. And more recently, we would go to like sometimes just cousin's house. Like today we're going to cousin Wendy's house. Today we're going to whatever. And it would just be like whoever would gather. We'd barbecue sometimes. We would go to a park, I am speaking as we did more of these trips when I'm younger. So a lot of them was like, we'd go to the public pool one day because there's like a random pool with big slides. So a lot of it was kid oriented, and then a lot of just kind of like sitting at picnic tables while people are like, how's fourth grade? And, or like we'd play, games outdoors, frisbee, just kind of whatever anyone could do to keep each other entertained mixed with, small talk.
Right.
Do you find yourself going back to North Dakota in like the present, like in your 20s now?
I haven't been in years.
Oh, when was the last time you went?
The last time I was there was for a family reunion, which was 4 or 5 years ago. And the time before that was for my grandmother's funeral. So it's a lot of like, that kind of once the matriarch and patriarch of the family passed, it's a little bit less North Dakota based. My parents just went back for their high school reunions respectively. Yeah. So that was fun. And I didn't go, but like I'm saying that they kind of did. And what was I going to say? That side of the family, my mom's side of the family, when growing up, we used to gather in Bismarck. Now we go elsewhere. We like pick every couple of years, we pick a destination and do like a family reunion there too. So I keep them with me, and and then when everyone's and I'm gabbing, so interrupt me.
No, you're
at
fine.
again, tons of cousins. So at weddings, we'll still make kuchen, which is like a flat pastry. So there's little relics, and a lot of them are like food based. I've noticed that we like take from German culture, or like North Dakota.
Oh man!
Wow,
that's so awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting how like both I made kuchen for the South Dakota episode.
Awesome.
And it was fine. It was pretty good, but it's really stellar to see. Maybe not stellar, but it's really interesting to see how much German culture is representative of North and South Dakotas on places like Google, where it's totally a whitewashed kind of. It seems so whitewashed in the search results. I don't know if that's like interesting to you.
I mean, I also think like that area of the country is so tied to that culture because like in the late 1700s, mid 1800s, just so many German, Austrian,
Scandinavian.
Sure,
Yeah.
we can name more countries. I mean, like Scandinavian especially, right?
Yeah.
For the Great White North. It's like all of these people were coming over and immigrating specifically to this area because it reminded them the most of like kind of the land that they came from originally.
Yes, my
right?
ancestors are from a group that's called Germans from Russia. So they immigrated from the Russian Empire.
Right.
To the Upper Great Plains. And my grandparents had a farm. Like a lot of my mom's older sisters grew up in Strasburg, North Dakota, which is about 70 miles south and east of Bismarck.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Are your grandparents like your grandparents are American, like born in America, or were they? Did they immigrate?
They are first generation, I believe.
Cool.
Yes.
Nobody's going to hold you to these answers.
No, I know.
It's
I'm like
okay.
thinking about it. I'm like, I really should know. Like
I don't
my
even
mom
know.
has memories of my parents, of her parents fighting in German in the kitchen.
Gotcha.
Right.
And
That's
like their parents spoke German.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I want to ask you, and I don't mean to blow up the spot of your parents at all by possibly letting their ages out there, but what year high school reunion did they go to?
It was, good question. I think it was, help me with the math a bit. They are almost 60. So I think it was 40.
Yeah.
That'd be 40. It was my
right.
dad's
About
40th,
40.
and it'll be my mom's
This
40th
is 40.
next year.
This is 40.
And this is,
and this is actually 40.
I'm Maud Apatow. There.
So that's Party Central, the 40th anniversary. You know, that's when it gets lit. I do have a question. You've seen North Dakota through the lens of being a youth, but you've seen your parents' experience with it and some of your grandparents' experience with it as well. Is it ever a place that you would consider moving someday to settle down or, to perhaps live out the rest of your days?
I don't believe so, but I do have a homey respect for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do like, I've noticed, and maybe my priorities will change, but I definitely feel more rooted in Minnesota. That feels more like a place to settle. And if I were to stay in the Midwest, and if I were, like, it would be something I would take my kids back to so they could know.
It does seem like a great summer vacation spot, or at least I guess that's what I'm building it up in my head. You mentioned swimming in rivers and playing Frisbee, and good golly gosh, I'm already feeling butterflies in my stomach.
Well, let's take a butterfly, saddle it up, and we'll ride it into North Dakota on our 5 senses. So we're going to do exactly that and explore North Dakota with our 5 senses. But before we do that, I believe we have to play a game, which I believe Stuart has prepared.
That's right. And guys, if you know the lyrics to this next song, sing along.
Let's go!
Batter up. We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a ball game, today. The fans are out to get a ticket or two. From Walla Walla, Washington to Kalamazoo. It's a beautiful day for a home run crack, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today. All right, I didn't hear you guys singing, but I'm not gonna get too upset about it. This game, they're going crazy. This game is called Far Going going gone. Yeah, what do you think of that? Carly, you excited?
Are you proud of yourself?
No, to be honest, I'm pretty upset.
You have a nice singing voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could really hear it under that music. Guys, this game is very, very simple. While looking through North Dakota research, I found an inordinate amount of people from Fargo specifically who were born there and have become professionally in some way connected to the world of baseball. Is North Dakota your time there? You spent some summers there. Did you ever hear the crack of the bat and maybe get a home run or even a triple's okay?
No. My mom went to undergrad in Fargo, which is in North Dakota, which is a misconception because of the Coen Brothers movie. Mm-hmm. And, she's a fan of the Bison football team, but boy, I've never seen anybody play baseball there.
Okay. Well, that is a pretty rough start to this game. To put the rules simply, I am going to tell you guys a player's name. Now I said player, but it can also be someone who was on the field. We're talking umpires, we're talking refs, we're talking third base coaches, we're talking professionally associated with baseball. I'm going to tell you a player's name. You have to tell me, is this a real baseball associated person born in North Dakota, or is this a totally made up person that has no association with baseball or the Rough Rider state?
Okay.
Do you think you guys understand the rules to this, Tuffy, or do you need me to sing the song again?
No, I'm ready. I have a database of a mind, and I'm ready to just put that to use.
You were hired by the Baseball Hall of Fame to live inside one of their computers, and people type things to you, and you give them a response, right?
Yeah, not a long drive from Saratoga Springs to Cooperstown, the most exciting place in New York.
Well, I'm glad we got to talk about Saratoga Springs before this game begins. Guys, name number 1, Darren Erstad. Is that a real person? And you know what? You guys can all work together on this, but I'm going to need a final answer that you all agree on. Darren Erstad.
You said Ansel because you're thinking, of course, of the Scandinavian history of North Dakota.
It doesn't sound like it.
Erstad.
Erstad is kind of a Scandinavian name, too.
Yeah, it's kind of German.
Kind
of Russian.
I could see that being a real person. I don't think Stu would make up Erstad.
But here's the thing. Stu has always tricked us on the first question. Has always made it a trick question.
I could just be somebody else. That's not
could
a
be
baseball player.
Good point.
Could be a totally made up person. What's his first name?
Darren, D-A-R-I-N.
He's given the spelling of it. Interesting.
And if you want me to spell Erstad as well, it's E-R-S-T-A-D. And you'll notice within that name are the letters that make up Star, Fault in Our Stars, Ansel Elgort. We got back to it.
Oh, nice.
Wow, good job, Stu.
No problem.
I think it's a real person.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Real person? That's right. Home run sound. You got it right.
Oh, wow. Whoa. Super Smash. That was crazy.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff,
yeah.
right? I'm making a
Batting
good
cages.
game. Guys, I've got name number 2, Hank Larsgaard.
No way. Too close to Starsguard. Starsguard.
Starsguard, Ansel Elgort.
Fault in Our Starsguard.
I'm getting a no from
Yeah.
Carly. You guys agree?
Yeah, of course.
But Lars is a common first name.
Yeah.
Another correct answer.
Wow.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Wow, yeah.
2 for 0.
Totally made that one up. Thought I'd get you with the Larsgaard, but turns out I was wrong.
Carly
Now,
just dabbed in the studio.
I'm moving.
I can't believe you called her out on that one. Speaking of call outs, I'm going to call out this next name, Alfonso Cyrell. Or Sorrell.
Oh, okay. It's definitely real because he can't pronounce the last name.
That's not fair. Are you guys willing to stick with Tim's answer that this is a real player? Straight.
You can't pronounce the last name of a person you made up.
I don't know. It could be either. It's either Alfonso Sorrell or Alfonso Cyrell. Either way, he's not a real person.
That was unfair, Stu. That was crazy unfair.
Way to isolate the audio of a definitely real MLB umpire saying strike and not record it yourself.
Well, you see, I used the home run bat sound effect from Super Smash Brothers, a game, and I wanted to get another game sound effect, and you may notice that one from the umpires in Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball on the N64. Camden, can we hear that strike one more time? Strike.
I straight up thought that was you. That sounds like you.
All right, next player. Gary Serum.
No way. Serum?
I have no idea.
This is a Venom reference.
Well, no, maybe. Who knows?
I don't. After that last one, I'm seriously thrown off.
How is serum spelled?
Yeah, good question.
Serum.
No way.
Yes, it is.
No.
All right, you guys are all saying Gary Serum is the real person. Straight. That's
What?
Gary Serum, Minnesota
Sorry to
Twins
this
pitcher.
Are you
That's
sure
right.
you're not pronouncing his Naram? It's
Serum.
Yeah, it's not Sarum or
It
anything.
very well could be. I don't know any of these people. What about Roger Maris? Roger Maris?
That sounds real.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maris.
Nice.
Cool.
Of course, Roger Maris, the Fargo-born player who broke Babe Ruth's home run record.
Whoa.
All right, we have three. We have 3 home runs and 2 strikes.
That's right.
Are we out on the next one?
You don't want to strike out, guys. But if you get 4 home runs, I'll award you with the Grand Slam Award, and you all get to take me to Denny's after the record.
Oh, great.
What a prize.
Big pass.
This next one.
Pablo Sanchez.
Mike Piazza. No, it is Trenton Chalmers.
Fake.
Oh, Anthony Hard fake.
I think that's fake. That's such a douchey name.
One more time.
Trenton Chalmers.
Chalmers.
And I'm not talking about the superintendent. I'm talking about Trenton.
Skinner.
Carly, what do you think? You
man.
hear the name Trenton Chalmers.
And I think we're in an improv scene anyway.
You guys think that's fake?
Oh man,
Not
we're riding the fine line right here,
Tim
y'all.
is torn. Tim is torn.
Riding the
Trenton-
fine line.
Trenton Chalmers.
This is fucked up. What are your answers? Fakes?
I'm switching. Let's say real.
Ooh.
Wow, okay.
Ooh, not popular.
I trust the judgment of the elder statesman.
There,
here.
I
do it.
mean, I'm going in literally blind on this one.
Trenton Chalmers.
Oh my god, I'm gonna go with.
Remember, Tim, before you say this,
Uh-huh.
a strike will lose you the game.
I
A
know.
home run,
I know.
God,
will lead us
bases loaded.
to bases loaded.
Yeah,
a
I know.
scenario for Grand Slam reward.
Trenton Chalmers.
Trenton Chalmers.
Oh, god damn it! I think it's real.
Strike.
Oh,
Strikeout.
I hate
Trenton
that.
Chalmers was made up by me. It does sound like an improv
Dang.
name.
I hate that so much.
Yeah, really, really bad. But before we end this game, I do want to tell you guys about a couple of other real people, including Chris Costa, an Astros player from Fargo, Timothy Johnson, a shortstop player and manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, and Amanda Clement, the first female umpire in the MLB.
Strike.
That's right. Amanda's not real. Guys, that's the end of my game. Unfortunately, you struck out, and I'll be going to Denny's alone tonight.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's a punishment for you all. So I don't want to see any smiles at the table.
But I was going to get a moons over my hammy.
Well,
all right, that was
there you go.
That was far going, gone. But Stuart, I gotta say, far go fuck yourself, man.
What?
So we're gonna move on to our regular segments where we explore North Dakota with our 5 senses. And to start, we're gonna explore North Dakota not with our eyes, not with our ears, not with our mouths, not with our hearts, but with our noses. So I'm gonna pass around a little jar that you're not supposed to look into, but I'm sure that you'll have no choice but to look into it. So why don't you go ahead, stick your sniffer in that, and we'll see exactly what we can pull out there.
I mean, I don't. Okay,
you weren't supposed to look in there, Stuart.
I don't have to look into this jar, and I am sorry, but I don't have to, and I don't think anyone else at the table will either. Carly, you just took your nose out of it. How would you describe that smell?
Dank.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
It's certainly skunky.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony,
what do you smell? Illegality?
Yeah, it's a smell that I'm not familiar with.
Interesting. Nor am I, actually. What I've pulled out for you all today is an illegal substance in North Dakota, but one that is so inherently tied to the state that it'll actually make you high.
what?
Guess who's from North Dakota? the smoke master, the kush master himself, Wiz Khalifa.
Wow.
Wait, what?
I thought the only celebrity from North Dakota was Josh Duhamel. He's on all the Minot. It's like, why not Minot? And then him in a vest.
What if Tim had brought out weed for us to smell and was like, Josh Duhamel, Kushhound himself?
Wiz. That's great.
Wiz Khalifa pretends that he's from Pittsburgh, though.
Wiz Khalifa was born, at least according to his Wikipedia page, in North Dakota.
Now, of course, as the king of the audio segment, I do think that this is stamping into my territory a little bit, and like a male elephant, I want to sort of scream back at you. Wiz Khalifa was born in Minnesota, and we'll surely hear some of his music. North Dakota. And what did I say?
Minnesota.
North Minnesota? Or?
No, you said Minnesota.
Okay, North Dakota. He moved to Pittsburgh at a young age and moved to many places other than that. He was a military brat, of course, but I only know that because I'm a huge fan. Definitely not because we're going to hear We Dem Boys later in this episode. So, Carly, I find it hard to imagine, but when you were hanging out with your grandma and baby cousins, did you ever smoke up and hit the
river? Yeah. I really learned how to make the W in the rolling paper of a joint.
Yeah, right.
That was
your grandma
staple.
Explained that to you.
Oh no, I never. I don't think we ever discussed it. It was probably something so morally wrong we would never have even brought it up. Like it would be like uncouth to even discuss like marijuana.
Marijuana has become a bit of like a testing ground for how liberal a state is these days. And like, I would say most states have gotten to the point where they're like, medical's okay. It's fine. Do we know, is North Dakota, do they have a medical marijuana at all? Or
you just said that like Trenton Chalmers.
Yeah, well, I'm Trenton Chalmers, man. I'm trying to smoke up in Coda, bro. You tell me. I think this might be one of those red states that is absolutely terrified of the leafy green.
I'm looking at it now because I didn't do any research actually into this, but I think it has medical marijuana, and then that's about it. Yeah, interesting.
Well, legalization is coming. Whoever we vote for, somebody better do it. And Anthony, I know you're pretty excited about Bloomberg announcing his candidacy, correct?
Absolutely fucking not.
Okay, well.
No, that man should not do anything else for the rest of his life except sit in the dark.
Well, you can't spell North Dakota without blowing two fat smoke rings, so,
Do you mean the O's?
I do. Carly, does this smell remind you at all of North Dakota?
Not at all.
Interesting.
Yeah, what the hell?
Okay. What before we get to the ranking of this segment, which we will have to do, so start thinking now, guys. What smells do take you home to those summers with the family?
Yeah, so like I said, my grandparents' condo had this closet that is so specific. The smell is so specific, and I smelled it once in the last job I had in the office, and it kind of tripped me up for an afternoon. I was like, this smells like my grandparents' condo in Bismarck.
What in the office, was it emanating from something in particular?
No,
or
it was just
the atmosphere.
It was a storage unit, so another closet. So it might be more specific to a closet than to the state of North Dakota.
Things forgotten in the dark.
Yes. The smell of Nifla soup at Kroll's Diner. The smell of Coogan. We went to...
This is, by the way, the second time you've mentioned Kroll's Diner. Is this the place that's famous for putting out too much tuna?
God, shut the...
I know, that was a really fucking
That's
bad
a Nick Kroll joke.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. But so would you say a lot of those smells are very specifically connected to the food you ate there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like homey traditional stuff.
What's the smell outside like there? What's the Great Plains smell
crisp.
like?
There's nice crisp air. We went horseback riding quite a bit. My older sister's famously a horse girl, so I had to do everything a horse girl would do, even though I liked dogs and monkeys. So we would go horseback riding. I did remember, just as we were talking, there was this tiny town, Medora, North Dakota, that we went during a family reunion, and it's like it's yeehaw, it's like ye old. There's like tiny little fudge shops, and like that was a little dustier. It was like people were wearing shit kickers, cowboy boots. And yeah, so just I'm kind of remembering the dusty sort of like just old, a little more arid.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Smells like an old cowboy town.
Yeah, leather.
Now, Carly, I want you to imagine me instead putting a whole bunch of dirt into a jar and then what kind of reaction Stu and Anthony would give, and it would be just as violent and mean.
Smells like skunk.
I mean, at least dirt is legal. Anthony, how do you feel about this smell segment?
Just give me a minute. I have to call the police real quick. Boop, boop, boop.
Hello?
Hi, I would like to make a citizen's arrest.
You should just go ahead and do it, my man. Who is
Okay.
this, by the way?
Anthony Rossi.
Oh, Ross Dog, Saratoga Springs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What? Do you have my file pulled up over there? What's going on?
Yeah, it says here you made a lot of trips to Cooperstown. You hauling anything into that county? Drugs, perhaps?
No. Just a good attitude and a database of information called my brain.
We're keeping an eye on
I'm
you,
hanging up.
Rossi. Oh,
Okay, that
That didn't go well.
that didn't go
You
well.
hung up on 911. They're going to call you back. That's how
No.
911 works.
I'm throwing my phone out of the window. Yeah, this was a ridiculous segment.
Anthony, what'd they say?
This was a ridiculous segment, and I'm not happy about it. I'm very pissed off. I'm gonna get a pair of cuffs because I don't stand for this shit in my house.
No, you're sitting down right now.
All right. Well, this was a miserable failure, but out of we have to rate our segment, and so out of 420 blunts that you'll have to smoke to the face,
What
how
the
many
fuck?
blunts are you going to smoke to the face for my segment?
That was 50 blunts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A very so
Even
few
generous.
blunts. Yeah,
Even
Fucking
generous for
miserable.
I was thinking like half a blunt, maybe.
Wow.
Man.
Okay, well, your opinions don't matter. So we're going to move on to our next regular segment where we explore North Dakota, not with our noses, but with our eyes. Anthony, why don't you take this one away?
Oh, this is gonna be a fun one. A nice visual segment full of things I'm sure that you went through with your family. Tons of
Ooh.
family attractions.
This is a
here.
very family-themed slideshow, you would
Mhm.
say?
Yes.
Mm.
Here we have North Dakota on the white background, starting things off strong. Why don't we move right into the next slide and check out that outline?
Wow.
Once again, it's one of these states that looks like a piece of mail that's been tampered with. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's rectangular, but it's got some fraying on the end. Carly, what abstract sort of thing would you say that looks like?
The Rorschach test. Yeah, it looks like a chewed on envelope.
I think it kind of looks like a VHS or something. This is reminding me of where that
Oh.
VHS. Speaking of VHSs in your dad's
We're doing
minivan.
the jumper cable.
yeah,
thing.
yeah. This looks like a VHS that was recovered in a car accident where the driver was like, I was watching
All that was
TV.
left was Beethoven's second.
Tim, do you see anything in this image?
No, the lighter thing makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Maybe,
so.
maybe you're into dogs. Maybe it's a piece of homework that a dog started to chew on.
Wow, wow, wow.
You know who's the dog that eats all the homework? Dun 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 dun. Beethoven. We were just talking about.
Hell yeah.
I remember Jeff Daniels getting hit in the crotch a whole bunch in that movie.
Yeah, that dog did not like Jeff Daniels' genitals.
You know what this reminds me of? And North Dakota is super about it. Reminds me of a roach just smoked.
Jesus Christ, what is happening? Why are you rebranding? What
Tim's
is
becoming
happening?
a weed podcaster. He's got on his Neff socks, Neff hat, and a big ass cool Bam Margera weed chain.
I'm the
Jeez.
elder statesman. You know, I'm getting a little old. Gotta invest in my medical marijuana so my pain goes away.
Yikes.
Well-
This episode has to air January 1st, 2020. Or we'll all be arrested.
Oh, let's move on to the next slide. Here we have the state flag.
Ooh.
A dark blue field with a bald eagle holding an olive branch and a bundle of arrows showing the duality of man. War and peace. What option will we choose? Then it has a banner in its mouth that states E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. You know what that means, Stu?
Yeah, it's like Legos, right?
No. A new country is born.
Ah.
It has a shield on its breast that has 13 stripes to represent the 13 original colonies. We also see 13 stars over its head, along with a little like sunrise arch that represents the birth of the United States. And then we have, of course, the banner at the bottom that says North Dakota. Now, the interesting thing about this flag, was that it was flown as a military flag for the North Dakotas units in the Spanish-American War and the Philippine-American War, pretty much as is. Like, this is the exact flag that was flown by those troops, and there was actually some opposition to using this as a state flag because it so closely resembles the United States seal.
Yeah, it is very, very similar. Carly, did you remember maybe looking out the window of a van when you got tired of watching the credits of Beethoven II and seeing, maybe looking up at a flagpole outside of Denny's and being shocked by the design of this flag?
A little bit, or maybe I confused it with the American, like a United States flag, not the American flag, because but it's busy now that I'm seeing it up close.
It is
busy.
Hardcore American busy. This looks like the calf of any guy in general, like GI, just signed to the Army out of high school. I know a lot of guys with this tattoo, and it's fine.
2 different items in each of his talons.
Yeah,
a busy bird.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, Carly, are you more of a war person or more of a peace person?
I love peace, but I do respect both my grandfathers served in World War II.
Damn.
Yeah, my grandfather on my mom's side was a translator because he spoke German.
And you're saying they were Germans from Russia?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a wild... I don't even want to get into it.
I better not.
I was about to say this is a cool flag, but that's a bald-faced lie, much like that bald eagle on the flag. I really am not interested in this one.
He's tacky.
Speaking of bald face, Tim, you're the only one here without any facial hair other than Carly, of course. Tim, what do you think of this flag?
Oh, man, I think this eagle was drawn by a second grader. This eagle looks fucking horrible. It's like splayed out, and I don't know. It looks like one of these eagles that are gonna like open up their trench coat and show their private bits to you. You know.
Yeah. It also looks like it's slipping on a banana peel. The angle is like falling backwards.
I don't know. I want an eagle like not like splayed out like it's a taxidermied, but I want like an in-action flying, like the head is ahead of its body. This one, it's just like the head is up, and it really just looks terrible.
I also think these lower legs and tail feathers are like the perspective isn't right on them.
I mean, this feather down here is just giant.
Yeah, I can't
compare it to the whole bird.
I can't tell if the feathers are in front of his legs or behind it. And to be honest, I got to give this one a big fat F.
You know what I do like? The only redeeming quality, the most interesting part about this flag is that top crown. I really enjoy that because that's like one of the more like unique designs I feel like we've ever seen on a flag.
Oh, well, I'm a big fan of these little curls on like the North Dakota sign. I think those look very Cirque du Soleil.
Like inky almost, like pressed with a stamp.
Are those arrows?
These?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, because that's war, of course. And these...
Tim, that's not a big plan.
Is he delivering them, or is he going to shoot them with a bow?
He's very obviously flying somewhere to say, if you must, shoot me down when I fly away, or enjoy these sweet berries I have brought.
This eagle probably has a whole bunch of IBS because the amount of push that it has in its right claw is insane.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Right. Let's fly on to the next slide and see the state bird. Wait. Could it be another Western meadowlark? Hey, hit that next slide. Camden, drop the beat.
And it was all yellow.
Jesus
wow.
Christ.
Code yellow, baby. Code yellow.
Wow.
We have another Western meadowlark. Carly, do you care to describe what you see on this slide here?
Yeah. My eyes are immediately drawn to Bart Simpson with a meadowlark on its head.
Hold on, this is very clearly Homer.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, God. I was scared of Marge, so I've actually never seen more than 2 episodes of The Simpsons.
Scared of Marge?
The voice is so... in the upper left-hand corner, we have a banana. We have Code Yellow. Code Yellow, Code Yellow. Oh, shit. And then we have Vote for Yellow, the peanut M&M, who is voiced by, help me out.
J.K. Simmons.
Thank you. And another minion holding a minion Pez dispenser.
I think it's like a pill or something.
Yeah, it's like a Beats pill.
Like a horse pill
to
for
play
minions.
That song.
That is massive. Also, I want to make it clear that J.K. Simmons' yellow M&M is holding the sign "Vote for Yellow" upside down.
Yeah, he's kind of a kooky character, huh? And of course, that's the banana from Peanut Butter Jelly Time, digitally rendered.
Oh yeah.
We all love Butter Jelly with a baseball bat.
Of course. Yeah.
That fits the theme of your game. with a baseball
baseball bat.
Yes, let's move
Sick.
on to the next slide and get right into the cities.
Ugh.
But wait, the bird was black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
Okay, well,
Guys,
Mr. Wiz.
you know, I glossed right over it because, you know, we've discussed Western meadowlark so much on the podcast. Carly, have you seen any Western meadowlarks in North Dakota that you can recall?
It really didn't ring a bell, but I'm sure I have.
Well,
what
it's-
about in any of the other 20 states that uses it as a state bird?
That, for real?
It's
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
how
No
popular
way.
it's that one. It's a cardinal, and like that's it.
Yeah, Minnesota's cardinal.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Camden, can we get that audio cue one more time?
No, how about we don't listen to
Okay,
any
all
more
right,
Coldplay?
fine. All right, here we have the prairie rose. There's yellow in this as well, but it's also pink. Very cool flower, growing on the side of a tree, it looks like. And then there's some green leaves behind it, but it's a very pleasant Patrick Star pink.
Wait, did you say pink? Camden, hit it. So what? I'm still a rock star.
I think this
Yeah,
is a
sick.
pretty straight down the middle state flag or state flower for me. What do you guys think?
I think it's pretty. Carly, do you see these often? Like ever? I mean, have you ever seen this flower or any flowers?
You know, I don't have strong memories associated with it, but it is familiar. Yeah.
It seems like a pretty one. Tim,
Dainty.
are you drawn to it in any way?
You know what? Out of the flowers that we've seen, and I'm not sure if it's the angle of this one or maybe the hue of that pink, but I'm slightly attracted to this one, y'all. I don't
Yeah.
know what. Have we ever seen the prairie flower?
The prairie rose.
I think we've seen it maybe once, but I'm not positive.
I think the last time we saw it, Anthony turned to me in my cotillion dress and said, "Well, you shine like a prairie rose."
Oh,
And my cheeks turned as pink as the flower.
Oh, well, let's move on to the next slide. Here we have Fargo.
Woof.
Billy Bob Thornton, nowhere to be found, y'all.
Ah, darn.
So exciting. What
This-
a booming metropolis, y'all. Very, very dense with skyscrapers and big action.
Anthony's, of course, joking. And you'd know that, listener, if you went to our Instagram and looked at these slides along with us, because, of course, this is a podcast and an audio medium. Carly, you spend any time in Fargo as a child?
Yeah, so about a midway point, a little over the midway point is Fargo. We'd always stop to eat in Fargo on the way from Minneapolis to Bismarck.
So
and
that's like 3.5 hours in, right? That's like an
a little
Irishman
more.
of
It's a
driving.
little, yeah. And like I said, my mom went to NDSU. That's her alma mater, North Dakota State University. So we would visit like one of her good friends sometimes, and we would eat at this Mexican restaurant.
Is NDSU in Fargo?
Yeah,
Okay, I see. And what is their mascot?
bison. So my mom.
Okay, thank you.
Carly, in person, is Fargo this freaking tan? Like, what the hell is happening here? It's all one
I've
color.
never seen an aerial shot of Fargo, but yeah, it does all look the same.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like low flat buildings and then just a giant road through the middle. And then like just scattered residential areas off to the back. Not particularly interesting, but definitely seems like you could make a day out of exploring the entire city.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out, of course, to all of our flat earther listeners. Please go check out this picture because I believe you can see the curvature of the earth from this one, baby. I mean, should we discuss the movie at this point? You brought it up earlier,
Yeah.
Fargo. Is in that movie? It's mostly set in Minnesota,
Yeah.
right? Fargo it's not. Is it close to
It's
Minnesota?
close to it's
Yeah.
a border.
it's like
Okay.
right
City.
on the border.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Growing up at all, did you? Obviously, hopefully, you didn't watch Fargo as a small child,
No,
smoking
not till
weed with your
college.
grandma.
Yeah.
But like, do you think that movie well encapsulates like the spirit of that area? Because it definitely feels like that's the stereotype that people think of when they think Minnesota, North Dakota, that Great White North.
Yeah. I grew up actually not too far from where the Coen brothers grew up. They grew up in the suburbs, but it really does seem like they did their homework. It does feels like a very specific point in time.
Yeah.
Is the accent like a very real thing up there?
Yes, it's more in the north.
Okay.
But yeah.
Would you say it's like it's a strange accent because it's so present and so hard in just that tiny area? Does it sound like Canadians? Like, do Canadians have that similar accent?
It is.
Is that
It's
what it
close.
is?
It's similar to Canada.
It's like a
Canadian accent.
merging of
Yeah.
like America and then Canadian accents
For
to
sure.
form.
Yeah, because a lot of German immigrants ended up in like
Yeah.
Saskatchewan and Manitoba too.
Right.
One more note about the movie Fargo. It stars Frances McDormand. I met her when I was a child, and she was extremely rude to me.
Oh, I'm sorry
I didn't
to hear
feel like
that.
I was entitled to her time, but she certainly treated me that way and was extremely rude. So if you're listening out there, Frances, I think I deserve an apology.
Yeah, Francis, go ahead and hashtag I'm sorry, Tony, and we'll go ahead and bring you on the podcast.
She treated me like I was an asshole when I was like maybe 12.
But you did approach her and say, "Oh, you were pregnant in Fargo, right?"
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next slide and see the famous Bismarck, the capital
Wow.
of North Dakota. Now, clearly not much more going on than in Fargo. What? What are you pointing at,
Who
Stu?
is that? Is that Bismarcky
It
in the
is-
bottom right
that's
corner?
Bismarck.
It is. It is.
Oh,
NDU. NDSU. Got what I need.
That's a good one. That
All right,
is
y'all.
good.
This I think is the Capitol building, if I'm not mistaken. It looks more like a hotel, but based on the property and the fact that this is the Capitol, look at that nice stretch of manicured lawn leading right up to it.
Yeah, we call that the mall. We don't.
How the frickin' heck do you make a lawn look like that? Like
yeah.
a barcode.
That's just simple. You mow it in two different directions, Tim.
No. That shit's crazy.
This, Anthony, I'll say with this picture of Bismarck, you didn't miss the mark. I think this is a nice looking town,
It's
to be
nice.
honest. You've spent a considerable amount of time here,
Most
correct?
time there. Yeah. And my dad's older sister was a city clerk. So worked in the
Whoa.
Capitol. Yeah.
So she would go there all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you think
in that
she
area.
knows how they got that grass to look so cool?
I could probably ask her.
Okay,
I could
good,
probably
good.
ask her.
We should be reaching out. Anthony, anything we should know about Bismarck?
Other than the fact that it's the Capitol, from looking at the picture, you can see that it's dense green, much like the contents of Tim's jar. Let's move on to the next slide.
Oh my God.
Here we have Grand Forks. It took me a minute to check my notes because this is not a particularly interesting shot. The river's running through the bottom of the slide, and then there's the bridge carrying you into the town. It looks pretty dense and stuck together. But once again, it's kind of like a grayish sort of town. There's nothing super unique about it, but it does look like a nice place.
You said Grand Fork. I see no silverware over here.
Also, the river is just one single river, it's not in any way being split at any point. Why is it called Grand Fork, Anthony? Carly? Anyone?
I truly couldn't tell you.
I don't know why it's called, and it's Grand Forks, plural. And I've spent little to no time here. This is a very blue-collar sort of industrial city.
An industrial city. I wonder, does anyone in any of your researches, Tim or Anthony, or perhaps Carly, I know you said you do have a couple of notes to give us on the podcast. Does anyone know what the big industries in North Dakota are?
Oil, baby.
Oil. All oil.
Bubbling crude.
Oh,
Yeah.
That sweet black gold.
Black
Yeah.
oil Texas tea.
It's got and then you've got wheat and corn and other agricultural mainstays, but crude oil.
Wow. I guess, the pipeline, we talked about it a little bit at the
Really
beginning.
tough. Just
Unfortunate.
recently,
It's
380,000. Oh, just like people said. It would
Yeah,
happen.
It's
what a
fucking
shock.
very
obvious.
weird. Yeah.
I think we're all on the same side of we were talking about Fault in Our Stars earlier, but Shailene Woodley, of course, arrested at the
That's
at the
right.
protests of the North Dakota pipeline. Big shout outs to Shailene. The one thing you and I agree on: get the big pipe out to here.
I have a story about the North Dakota pipeline. D something from Twisted Sister. One of
D.
the
Schneider,
D.
I met him
Schneider.
in a Chipotle. Yeah,
I met him multiple times at my work when I used to work in Los Angeles because we were making a music video for him. And the music video was about the North Dakota pipeline. And so we sent this production crew with D to go to North D to protest the pipeline. And it was a wild and really, really appropriating music video. Really,
Okay.
really
Ugh.
sad stuff.
that's
Yeah.
really
That's
rad.
awful.
I can't wait to see D. Schneider with his incredibly long fake white hair stuffed into some fucking racist head garb
Yeah.
that he thinks is super cool.
Wrapped in an ornate cowhide kind of a thing.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Well, fuck that. But Stu, when you met him in a Chipotle, was he rude to you and treating you like an asshole?
No. And this is a story I have been waiting now 1 year to tell on the podcast because I tell everyone this story when I meet them. And Carly, of course, we shook hands earlier. So get strapped in. This is a fun one. I'm in Chipotle. I'm a freshman in college. I go in there to get my burrito, and while I'm standing in line, I notice the wispy hair of a Santa-looking fellow in the Chipotle talking to two who I assume are his daughters, because these girls are like my age. They're like 18, 19 years old. And as I turn around, I realize, that's Dee Snider, lead singer of Twisted Sister. Now, I think a lot of people would not recognize him, and that's totally fair because he's culturally a little bit irrelevant at this point. But I was like, hey, it would be kind of cool to say hello to him. And so I walked over and I said, hi, aren't you Dee Snider? That's really cool. And I shook his hand. The most calloused hand I'd ever felt in my entire life. It was massive. He said, thank you for being a fan. And he gave me a metal business card to Dee Snider's Rockin' Christmas Eve. And he said, show this at the door for a half-price ticket. And I said, oh, that's cool. And then he sat back down and kept looking at me the whole time while he did. And I was like, okay, and turned around and went and ate my burrito with my back to him, but never went to Dee's Rockin' Christmas Eve, and I don't think anyone else did either.
Yeah, and that, of course, set you down the path to your own business cards one day. It was so inspiring that you felt you had to get a big box.
Yeah,
Such
Carly,
a blatant ripoff of Rockin' New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Egregious.
They say Stuart Highcar's Rockin' Christmas 2 days before Christmas. And Carly, don't let me let you leave without giving you a business card to give to your friends and family, of course.
For a half-price ticket.
Yeah, it would mean everything.
Did you see his Tesla by chance?
No, I think he had walked there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think he was doing well at the time.
You should, if you have the opportunity, Google Dee Snider's Tesla, and it is like one of the ugliest cars you'll ever see. It's gold rims and like orange and black. Oh, it's like really fucking strange.
Maybe we'll see it in the visual segment.
Yeah, but one thing we won't see in the visual segment is the pipeline, of course, and it just came up, and we just want to, we don't want to have to spend too much time on this, but the fact that it was installed is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, inevitably, it did what everybody was warning everybody that it was going to do, and it did spill a bunch of oil, and that totally could have been avoided if not for corporate greed. And I think that that's truly a travesty that happened.
Yeah, one of the long-term effects is that it's going to seep into the Oglala Aquifer, which I don't know if it's in North Dakota, but it supplies fresh water to 8 states. So that's kind of what we're working with here.
And I wonder if any of us know the ramifications of like what's going to happen to the people that ended up installing it. Are they going to get in trouble at all? No. And they probably will not.
Of course not. No, they're going to be written off, and it's going to be like, well, this was an unavoidable accident. And we'll all move on and just get worried about the next thing that happens because the world is falling apart and tumbling to an end. But while it happens, you can listen to this great podcast, my friends.
Yeah. Well, on that note, why don't we move on to the next slide? Here's the natural beauty of North Dakota, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, a 70,446 acres national park split across 3 different units, North, South, and Elkhorn Ranch. It was established in 1978. Yeah, they went with a different direction for that last one. And not cardinal direction.
By the way, Anthony, did you say Elkhorn?
Nope. Elkhorn.
Elkhorn.
ELK space HORN.
Why are you intentionally misunderstanding? What are you setting up?
Nothing. I don't have anything. Let's keep going.
Are you referencing the fact that Korn used to be my favorite band and I saw them on the Family Value Store twice with my mom?
Yes, I am referencing that.
If I'd met them, I bet they would have been nice to me. Back to the notes. It was established in 1978. It's the only U.S. national park directly named after one person. As of now, pretty shortly, we'll be looking at Anthony Rossi National Park. It's famous for the vast amount of wildlife contained within the park, including bison, wild horses, elk, coyotes, and over 186 species of bird. 186 species of bird, and we still wound up with the western meadowlark.
Yeah, that's a bummer. So many birds, so many birds.
But of course, it is also famous for its scenic drives and hiking trails. And look at this shot. It's just a gorgeous landscape. We have the river stretching through, just rolling fields, plains, and then rock faces. It's just absolutely stunning. And it's kind of like a mid-morning shot. It looks like the sun rising and casting its orange beams across the landscape. What do you think of this beautiful, beautiful shot?
Carly, when you look at this Does it take you home in any way?
Yeah. I've been a couple times. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Give me your honest critique on this shot in particular.
Oh,
Is there
sure.
anything you'd want to add in, take out from this national park? Let's say you're God.
It looks a little Star Warsian, so I would throw in some spaceship.
Fucking sick.
That'd be very par for course in a slideshow.
Yeah. This is gorgeous. This is a fantastic park. And I mean, like Theodore Roosevelt, one of the first people to really care about conservation of American land.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speak softly and carry a big dick.
Oh my God.
Stu, of course, you would post a picture of him with hashtag mustache goals. Am I right?
I would indeed. And just like the great Moose himself, sometimes I feel a little bit lonely talking at the table, guys. I walk this lonely road, the only one that I have ever known.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know if any of that actually connected. But
Well,
How about this, Stu?
yeah.
To that joke, I say Naboo.
well, there are certainly a bunch of
Whoa.
shadows in this. There's certainly a bunch of shadows in this photograph. Maybe one of them will walk beside us onto the next slide. Here we have the Madahe Trail. Madahe is a phrase from the Mandan tribe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Mandan, yeah.
Mandan, which roughly translates to an area that has been or will be around for a long time. And it certainly has. This is a 144-mile trail through North Dakota, the longest continuous single-track mountain biking trail in the entire United States.
Wow.
The trail is completely non-motorized, only accessible for hikers, bikers, and horseback riders. It connects the north and south units of the Theodore Roosevelt Park. Obviously, Elkhorn National Ranch is left out. It winds through the Badlands and connects to 9 different campsites along the way. As you can see in the pic, we've got someone ruggedly mountain biking in bright, shiny colors.
You're saying someone. That's very obviously Joseph Gordon-Levitt from Premium Rush.
Oh, I thought it was your.
does look like him.
I thought it was your dad, Stuart, as an
Okay.
avid mountain biker himself.
That's right. Finally, Carly, you have a way to take me down. My dad mountain bikes, okay?
Man, my dad's a cyclist. Let's make him fight.
Ugh. Road versus off-road?
You know
This is getting dirty.
You know their legs are strong. They might kick each other half to death.
Yeah, my dad's goat.
So Carly, have you ever been on the Mandan Trail? I know you said that you were, the Madahe Trail. You said that you rode horseback, and this is a prime place you might have done that.
I believe I rode horses at Elkhorn, and maybe have walked a portion of this path, but I've certainly never cycled it.
Horses love corn, famously.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what rhymes with spoke?
What?
Snoke. And you know what rhymes with Snoke? Smoke.
What are you?
I will tie all my bits together.
Yeah. A nice bow.
I've done it. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave now.
Oh no.
Let's just throw a hypothetical out there. And Carly, I want you to answer this. The 4 of us go on a 3-week mountain biking trip across North Dakota. Who do you think makes it? Who do you think doesn't? And be honest.
Oh, I don't think I make it. I think it'll be a classic. Actually, could be more like a Lewis and Clark Sacagawea sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Y'all
Sure.
can feel free to cast yourselves.
No, thank you.
When you say you don't make it, you of course mean you don't make it to the start of it. You blow us off, much like Tim State.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can we reschedule?
Hey, at least you're telling us to reschedule.
Oh,
wow.
Yikers.
Blistering.
Oh.
Well, brokenhearted. Let's move on to the next slide. Fort Abraham Lincoln. No beard on this one. An old military stronghold located within what is now Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park in Morton. What a salty location.
Thanks.
Oh my
It was built in 1872 and originally named Fort McKean, much like the brother in Better Call Saul.
Much like.
What are you
Jesus.
But it was quickly renamed to Fort Abraham Lincoln. It accommodated up to 9 companies at a time, much like the John Hancock building. And
Every sentence doesn't need to have a bad joke in it.
These are good jokes. It accommodated up to 9 companies at a time, much like the John Hancock Building, including cavalry units, and it had a small town housed next to the barracks, featuring a post office, a granary, a bakery, and Stu's favorite, a telegraph office.
I do love my telegraph. Stop. Best stop, Stewart.
So this is just a shot of the fort. It looks like a very weird structure. It's like got a solid house-like base, and then it looks like they just stacked another house on top of it. Then there's a little watchtower. What do you guys think of this?
This looks like Frank Gehry sculpture. Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Frank Gehry building. He's an architect. He made the Pritzker Pavilion downtown,
Yeah.
that silver sort of
Oh.
structure. And then his sort of magnum opus, if I'm using that correctly, his Hoover Dam is,
You are.
thank you, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain.
Right.
I am not familiar with this, but that's what it looks like to me.
It does look like weird, like alternative architecture. It
Yeah.
looks like it's making a statement on what a house can be, you know? And
Alt.
It's where the heart is.
that's 100% correct. And what a shame, because everyone's heart doesn't beat the same. It's beating out of time. Speaking of time, Anthony, anything else you want to take up some time with on this slide or move on?
No, let's move on right on to another fort, Fort Mandan, a replica of the fort. Oh man, my notes just jumped around. Cursed technology. Maybe I should switch to paper, huh?
If you need
Fort
me,
What?
I was just gonna say if you need me to vamp, but I'll comment after.
It's Fort Mandan, Fort Mandalorian, now available on Disney Plus.
Stop!
It's a replica of the fort built by the Lewis and Clark expedition to settle in and weather the particularly harsh winter of 1804 to 1805. During their time at the fort, the expedition crew focused on diplomatic efforts with nearby Native American tribes. This is actually the site where they first met Sacagawea, who became an indispensable part of their expedition and kept them safe.
I hear you talking about Lewis and Clark, but on this podcast, it's Stewish and Snark.
Wow.
Yeah.
That joke was so cold that I'm going to have to build a fort. Look at this fort.
Yeah, it seems nice.
My uncle, it's the partner of my aunt who worked as a law clerk for a judge, was is a historian, and specifically Lewis and Clark historian.
Whoa.
And has worked or presently work, used to work and maybe presently works at Fort Mandan. So
Wow.
I have been here a number of times.
You
Yes.
are familiarly connected to this fort.
I am, yes.
Wow. What should we see while we're there? Any great stockades?
Oh yeah, tons of them.
Ooh. The walls, this is the one thing I want to describe. Classic fort walls where it's just like a bunch of logs with sharp points at the top. And that
Yeah.
used to be the greatest technology available to man to
Two
keep people
chimneys.
out. That's true. Wow.
This straight up looks like it was erected by a beaver. Am I right?
Yeah,
Damn.
dude. Yeah, dude, you are.
Too harsh. Well, this doesn't look like a particularly sensational place, but it certainly has a lot of historic value and definitely looks like a field trip central. Any other thoughts on
No,
this great piece of history?
Carly, you went there a lot. Would you like to describe maybe the first time you cried of joy there?
Oh, I am not the history buff in my family, so it may have been when we got to leave. Nah.
Okay, well, Anthony, do you want to take us to the next fort?
Yeah, let's go on. I don't like the name of this place. It's the Knife River Indian Villages National Historic Site. That should probably be updated. But it's located in central North Dakota, originally settled by the Hidatsa, or Northern Plains tribe, and the Mandan tribe around 1600. It thrived until about 1840, when the majority of its population was wiped out by smallpox. Fucking white people. The original home of Sacagawea, of course, another part of our history, and it was established as a historic site in 1974. It preserves the history of the tribes and the artifacts and Earth Lodge dwellings that remained. This, of course, is a reconstructed Earth Lodge dwelling, but it looks like a very traditional style. There's a door leading into a mound, and it is just like a great park to go around and check out some history.
Yeah, you said this was Knife Water was the name of it?
Knife River.
Knife River. I mean, I've heard of Knife in the Water, but Knife in the River? And speaking of other movies, this looks like a Hobbit home.
Yeah, it does.
And we have Grand Forks and Knife River.
Whoa.
Tell me where Spoon Gulch is.
Sounds comfortable.
Okay.
You like to snuggle?
No, leave me alone. This is a cool place. I'd like to go here and probably learn a little bit about the Native American history of the area. I know it stretches back incredibly long, 60,000 years or something, that people were living in North Dakota before European settlers ever showed up. So, I mean, there's a massive amount of history. I want to ask Carly, although you grew up in Minnesota, I kind of think of a lot of those northern border states as having a large and very interconnected Native American history. Did you learn a lot about that growing up, or was it like one of those unfortunate instances where you like turned 20 and you're like, why didn't they teach us any of this?
Yeah, I imagine it was an abridged, whitewashed history, but it was at the center of when you study your state's history. It was at the center of that, and it was interesting to hear about my mother and their siblings, the way that was sort of the big other population. And so just kind of how how the modern history of it and sort of the way we think about racial tensions.
Yeah, and still obviously a massive problem
Certainly.
in not just this state, but any state that is, currently subjugating an entire race of people and has been for 400 years. Tim, any interest in this whole home?
Yeah, honestly, I'm interested in building one for myself because I bet that's cozy in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would keep you cool.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not talking about my crowd house team, right?
Certainly not. Let's
Certainly
move on to the
not.
next slide.
Really good plug.
Some enchanted highway.
What?
It's an enchanted highway, Tim.
Ah!
Did you like my song reference to a musical number everyone's long forgotten?
Yeah, it was really good.
It's a 32-mile stretch of otherwise unnamed highway. No numbers, Tim. Sorry about that. It features 8 large scrap metal sculptures. North Dakotan artist Gary Greff started building the sculptures in 1989 and has continued to add new pieces to this day. There's actually a piece that's currently in progress.
I wanted to mention that Gary Greff, one of the fake names in my baseball game. So that's just a wild coincidence.
This is a really cool piece. It's, built of scrap metal, and we see some birds flying through the prairie.
Is this the highway that, I mean, obviously, if you don't know, Carly, but did you ever drive down the Enchanted Highway, or was every drive down a highway enchanted because you were with your family?
The latter, exactly.
This highway might not have any numbers, but in my heart, it's number 1, baby.
Oh, something I wanted to note to you guys. We're looking at sort of this statue with geese, I think, flying across it. This is like an interesting almost vision, like an illusion or something. It's like I can't tell which direction these things are flying.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Either they're long-tailed, short-faced bats flying this direction, or long-necked, short-butt geese flying
purple
the
people
other.
eaters.
Yeah, okay, thank you. This is a spooky statue, I think, if I was to come across this in the middle of the night driving down an old road.
Yeah. It's enchanted, not haunted.
Yeah.
Also on this slide, there are 2 movies you very easily could have been watching in their car on the way to the state.
And have.
Enchanted and Ella Enchanted. Which of those picks goes down in history for you?
Me?
Yeah.
Probably Ella Enchanted. I thought Enchanted was just kind of a lifeless bore. But Ella Enchanted, of course, a beautiful princess tale and a lesson on truth-telling.
I have never seen either of these films.
Carly, it's okay if you want to leave. Jeez.
Jeff Daniels gets totally hit in the nuts in Enchanted. Let's move on to the
I
next
discovered
slide.
a crush on James Marsden that I now get to keep dormant for 10 years. I was like, oh, great.
All right, here we have the Scandinavian Heritage Park, established in 1988 to honor the Scandinavian roots of North Dakota settlers.
Wow.
It celebrates Scandinavian heritage through replica buildings and art pieces. The one prominently featured in this photo is the Gullstave Church, a direct replica of a church in Norway. The park hosts the annual Norse Coast Fest, a big celebration of Scandinavian culture attended by tens of thousands of people per year. And it does just look like a nice little park.
Have you guys ever been to Epcot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to like the Norse Scandinavian section where they have like the ride where you go through like all the history of the Scandinavian countries, and it's like trolls used to live here, but now it's just oil rigs.
No.
Okay, well, that ride I don't think is there anymore. Now it's Olaf's Secret Circus or something like that. Thanks for the big point, Camden. But they have, and I'm not joking, this exact same replica church in that Scandinavian section of Epcot, and you can buy Frozen merchandise there. And by the way, Frozen 2 coming out soon. You can watch it on Disney+. Carly, what do you think of this architecture? You were bringing up Frank Gehry earlier. Is this Frank scary to you? Thank you.
Yeah, all the scaffolding. This is beautiful.
It's an interesting look that you don't see in many other cultures. I would closely, maybe like a pagoda house in like Japanese architecture or something like that.
Yeah, with the way those roofs are, I can see that.
So between this replica of the church and between the Abraham Lincoln fort and then between your toy as a child, obviously a big obsession with stacking things in North Dakota.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
All right, well, let's move on to the next slide.
I have a question about that stacking toy, and I am sorry.
I gotta look it up.
Was it one of those, like, it's like a box full of water, and you would, like, hit the buttons, and it would squirt the little rings up?
This is like a game with no rules. This is like tinker. This is like move your hands past the time.
Game with no
Plastic.
rules, a lot like life.
Anthony, is there something you want to tell us?
No.
Okay. Well, while Carly looks up what this particular game might be, Anthony, what are we looking at here? Sure looks like what I would call life, which is a stage.
Yeah, all the world's a stage, but this particular stage is the Burning Hills Amphitheater in Medora, where they're performing the Medora musical, a big musical review and variety show that showcases the pageantry of the Wild West. It has hundreds of thousands of visitors annually, and what a crazy amphitheater this is. It just has like the true amphitheater seating leading down to a stage with a backdrop that just looks straight out of Red Dead Redemption 2, and then a backdrop of like gorgeous mountain landscape. It looks really, really fun and pretty, but I bet that's a total bore to watch.
I've seen the show.
Whoa!
I've seen the show. Yeah. I mentioned it earlier. This is the Ye Old Town.
Yeah.
The Medora musical is long as fuck. It is long. And we're a big theater family, and we were like, whoo, this is ticking in around 3 hours. This is tough.
Oh my God.
I will say there is a beautiful part where they shine a spotlight on this mountain here, and there's a guy, like this is above the stage and behind for people who can't see, which is everybody else. And it goes to a guy on a horse, and the horse rears up, and then there's like a mountain shot.
Whoa.
And it's like the timing
Like-
of that, you don't see him climbing up the mountain, which would be hilarious for like if that shot did not go well. Keep calling it a shot. And then actually my choir director in high school worked at the Medora musical. So there's like a thing of like
That's
on her
dope.
desk of like her in costume. It's yeah.
Can I ask, having a shot, like a surprise shot where you reveal that deep in the background where you thought it was not a stage is actually being used in the production, that feels like the better version of when someone in the seat next to you in a play stands up and reveals that they're in the play.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, cool, like sick.
Yes.
As a theater family, Carly, have you ever been in a theater production where you felt uncomfortable by people leaving the stage and doing things in the aisles?
Oh, I think I got pulled up.
Oh.
I was in Ellen's Stardust Diner in New York City. So it's like they do musical numbers there.
Right.
And somebody put the microphone to my face to try to get me to sing. And I didn't play along. I gave a hard no.
Well, it couldn't have been any worse than me singing that baseball song earlier, so I would have hope in yourself. This seems like it would be a fun night with like a family to go out. The length worries me a whole lot, but I do think you could probably sneak out at some point.
Definitely. We got eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Tim, any thoughts on live theater, Shakespeare and the Pork?
Literally none.
Okay.
Well, let's move on to the final slide. Goodbye. Will we miss you? No, duh. Here we have Josh Duhamel
There he
riding
is.
in a ride with his son. And it is, of course, a theme park in North Dakota, unnamed.
I'm not Ian, I know it.
Yep, we do have another feature from the yellow M&M voiced by
Why?
J.K. Simmons.
Why? He doesn't have anything to do with the state. It was the color of the bird. Why is he back?
Well, he likes to get in on the family fun.
Okay.
Who am I to blame? Josh Duhamel, known for playing a lot of serious, violent roles, but he's a family man. Isn't that charming to see?
Is he known for his violent roles?
Yes, all of his roles are like gruff cowboys that shoot people in the face.
That's very North Dakota, very Rough Rider. Would you say that's how Rough Riders roll?
I would say that. Medora was Westworld before Westworld was real.
Speaking of your crush on James Marsden, let me ask you, looking at Josh Duhamel and now finishing up this segment, of course, we have to come back to that rating we talked about earlier. 420 blunts smoked to the face.
Jesus Christ.
Look, I wish it was something else, but here we are, and we have to honor Wiz.
No way. I'm sorry.
Food has just been presented, and the surprise is blowing some minds. But, Carly, out of 420 blunts smoked to the dome, a la Gabrus, why don't you tell us how many blunts was this presentation?
I got to give this presentation 220 blunts. But
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What was I missing?
It was, well, people can't see it, so.
Oh, you can if you go to our Instagram, of course,
That's
Statesman
right.
Podcast.
You can find everything there. You're the first guest who has commented on the fact that this is a very visual part of a podcast. Do you think, and you can be totally honest, this is a judgment-free zone and a flex-free zone. Thank you very much. Do you think this segment works?
Should be shorter.
No.
And that's not a dig at you or the content you created. I appreciate it. I just think a visual segment should be shorter.
Hard no.
I love that you guys are giving talkbacks in between. This is the first podcast where you guys are actively commenting on your craft.
We sit in the theater afterwards
God.
and watch everyone leave until there's like two people who ask us questions about the casting. But
Stay tuned for season 2 of Statesman, where the visual segment gets longer.
stay tuned. That's fun.
Don't worry, this whole visual segment thing has been a point of contention since the very start. So, Anthony, great job for your 220 blunts, was it? That's a lot of blunts. Anthony smoked straight to the dome. I know you have nothing to do about that, though. So we're going to move on to our next regular segment where we explored North Dakota with our tongues. What I prepared for you all today is something that has Carly, really flipping out because it's called
Flipping out.
It's
Carly's going crazy.
Carly, you said it earlier in the podcast. So what is it?
This is Nifla soup. I can't believe you made this. I'm like feeling very emotional right now.
That makes me feel good. I'm glad. So what Nifla soup is like a very traditional German dish. It's like a thick chicken and potato soup with some dumplings in it. The way that I made it was I melted a whole bunch of butter, way too much butter than I was supposed to. Then I cooked some potatoes and shaved onions and then cooked those all together. And then after about 20, 25 minutes, I added some milk into that little dish. And all the while I was boiling water and chicken broth. Also, it's sprinkled with some fresh parsley. But some problems that I found with doing this one was I accidentally used 1 cup of butter instead of a half cup of butter. So there's a shit ton of butter in there.
You can smell it.
And then, additionally, while I was doing the broth aspect of it, the recipe called for bouillon cubes, and I couldn't find those at Trader Joe's. So it asked to do bouillon cubes and water. So I did water and beef or chicken broth. So it's super watery where it's supposed to be a little bit thicker, I think.
It varies. I mean, the homemade recipes are a little more thin, but then like something at a Kroll's or fast casual is a little more chowdery. It's delicious.
So do you think, would you compare it to chowder as a... No,
it's more chowdery, but I don't think I'd classify it as a chowder. Yeah.
All the while, it's got like thick chunks of potato in there, and then I also made some. I also like rolled up some dough and made these little dumplings out of it too, and cooked those in the beef or the chicken broth.
I used to make rolled dumplings with my grandmother, and then there's another thing called rivel soup, which is another dumpling-based chicken broth soup.
What is it called?
Rivel, and then
Rivel.
the rivels are like tiny. They're more like pebble-sized dumplings, so we used to roll those at the table together. It was wild.
Man,
Taste
the hamburger or the oh man, who steals the Hamburglar equivalent of soup would say ribble. Okay, there we go. I got it out. Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty good. I think like if I was cold, like very cold, and like was just working outside, maybe digging holes for fence posts all day, I would come inside and my prairie rose might present me with a cup of this, and we would sit arm in arm in Spoon Gulch eating this bowl, Anthony.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you, Chief. I do not like this very much.
Oh.
I think it's a little, I think that it's close, but no cigar for me. I think that if it were a little thicker, I'd enjoy it more, but it's also just a little bland in my opinion. I think
Totally.
with the amount of butter that's in there, I could definitely smell it. And if I'm like getting my nose in there as I eat, I get more of that olfactory assist, to the taste. And I think that's really great. And I love the dumplings. You did a great job with the dumplings. Love dumplings in my soup. Super great. But I think that it's a hair off. Maybe I'm looking for a little more salt or a little more heft to the consistency.
I think because I added the water with the chicken broth rather than just doing water and a bouillon cube, it waters all of the flavor down and makes it like just a little bit untasty.
Yeah, it's definitely not awful. Like I really enjoy this, but I really do think that it's so liquidy that if you had dropped in the bread that you made from the Kansas episode, it would turn into a sponge.
Carly, you smashed that soup.
Like, this is really tweaking me out. I would love some more.
Oh,
wow.
Please, here. We
I'm
have
just
a whole
like,
pot
I'll
of
take
it
your
over
bowl.
here.
I'm like freaking. Yeah.
Here, we will get you another bowl.
I'm really
No worries.
So you used to make this a ton when you were
I
a
didn't
kid.
make it a ton. It was like very we would get it fast cash, and then like it's a little bit of it's a little ceremonial to have it made.
Oh,
homemade.
that's
But I
awesome.
had it quite, certainly more than anyone else that I know.
I think everybody, or at least I hope everybody, has one of those dishes that they kind of like. It's very complicated and it takes a little while to create, and it's for special occasions with family. And like, would you say this is a good one of those, or are there other foods that you associate really hard with when you go to North Dakota?
I would say this is the biggest one.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Tim. Congrats,
wow.
man.
I was going to make something else too. I was going to make I'm pronouncing this wrong. It's Scandinavian lefse.
Oh, sure.
Lefse?
I've had it. It's less, I guess, like indigenous to my family.
Yeah,
if I'm to use a word like that.
It's more it's a pastry, I think. A pastry, like a potato pastry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what it was, but like, it's like kind of tortilla-like, and you fold it kind of potato burrito.
Pastry. I've been described as a pasty potato.
Tim, I want to be fair to you. So as I've taken a couple more sips, I think I was getting a little more flavor than I was getting when I was doing it by spoon. I think I just kind of sipping it out of the side of the bowl really gives it that.
And this is,
that assist I was looking for.
Specifically, its origins are specifically for nourishment and
Oh,
using
yeah.
up potatoes.
Mhm.
It's totally, with an older palate, I'm like, yeah, this needs hot sauce.
Yeah, for sure.
Like-
I do think this feels like, this is something that you could make in the winter and would sustain like
Yeah.
a prairie family for weeks on end.
It's crazy how little ingredients this actually takes to make. It's potato, it's onion, it's milk, and butter.
And elusive bouillon cubes.
Yeah, elusive bouillon cubes.
Damn you, bouillon, where
Tim,
are you?
I'll give you props once again. You found the stride with the consistency of the potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something you struggled with early on this podcast, and these are great.
It's finally time for another Tim Tater updater. And Tim, 10 out of 10 on your taters, baby.
Yeah. I'm getting better with these Tates. I mean, I love cooking Tates.
I would
think they're
describe
fun.
these as golden Tates.
Yeah.
Famous New York Giants player.
Golden
Yeah.
Tate's Warriors.
Oh, wow.
Look, I am so glad that you enjoyed this dish, but Carly, it's time to rank it out of blunts to the dome.
Yeah.
Any way
Out
that
of-
we have fun in a segment, we can always
Totally.
bring it back down with these blunts, baby.
Yeah, I gotta, this is 400 to the dome.
Oh,
Yeah.
So if I had actually made it good and less watery, I would have had those 420 blunts straight to the
I
face.
suppose.
That's
You only-
incredible.
You only missed 20 blunts.
And honestly, out of if I'm smoking 400 blunts, 20 blunts isn't going to get me any higher.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's time to move on to our next regular segment where we explore the state of North Dakota, not with our tongues, not with our eyes, not with our sniffers, but with our ears.
Hey, guys, wherever those 20 blunts went, we better bring them back out because the man himself has to play.
But first I gotta roll this joint, baby. Hold up. Hold up. We them boys.
Stay Statesman Boys.
Yikes. Speaking of North Dakota rappers, I mean, Tim, you fit the profile, baby. That was, of course, Wiz Khalifa. We've been talking about him and his many, many blunts this whole show with his hit We Dem Boys. I know normally we pause the podcast if someone needs to whiz, but this time we're recording it all.
Cool.
Yeah, born in Minot, North Dakota, or maybe Minot.
Minot.
Minot?
Yeah, the campaign is Why Not, Minot.
Oh. I've got some reasons. Wiz was a military brat who moved all around the world until his family settled in Pittsburgh. His rap career began there as a cool-ass teen, as Anthony was referencing earlier. You definitely hear that Pittsburgh sound, but maybe he also has some North Dakota roots as a Rough Rider himself. Well, after a string of successful mixtapes, Wiz won MTV's Hottest Breakthrough MC of 2010, and from there he released Black and Yellow and kind of exploded to fame. Tim, you were singing it earlier. I'm a huge Black and Yellow head. You guys like that song?
Yeah.
When the whip transformed.
Yeah, that song came out around the time the Packers were in the Super Bowl. So my entire Facebook timeline was green and yellow, green and yellow.
You know who it is? Aaron Rodgers with the big throw. That's the biz.
I think that was the
Wow.
same year that
Thanks.
I started driving too, and I noticed just how much that song would play, like rolling up to somebody else at a stoplight.
Can I ask, you started driving, did your whip ever transform?
No.
Okay, well, he's crafted multiple platinum records, been nominated for a handful of Grammys, and was recently on the top of the Billboard 200 for 12 weeks. 12 weeks. 12 weeks sounds like a really crowded episode of Game of Thrones. He was on the top of the boards for his song See You Again off the Furious 7 soundtrack. Carly, any love for the Fast and Furious gang and the Rest in Peace Paul Walker reference in the song?
Not so much. This is a franchise I didn't tap into, although Andrew Lemna, shout out from Stork and IO Herald team, has walked on as Paul Walker several times. It's been a minor crutch of his.
Yikes.
Anytime there's heaven or a dead celebrity, he's Paul fucking Walker. So that's
Shout
something
out
we
to
give him,
Andrew.
we razz him for.
Shout out to Andrew. Very funny boy. I don't know about that particular choice on
Yeah.
stage, but
How about this?
Mhm.
It's been a long ep with you, my friends, and I'll tell you all about it on this ep of Statesman.
how about that?
Yeah.
That was great.
These days, Wiz has dual custody of his son with Amber Rose, smokes weed every day, and was in a commercial for Oreos with his baby son.
That was a
Because-
cute commercial.
Was a cute commercial. They opened up the Oreos, they ate the cream, and they were playing games together. Guys, any feelings on Wiz Khalifa, Amber Rose, North Dakota, Oreos? Any feelings at all?
Yeah. Well, you go ahead, and then I have a small anecdote.
No,
Oh.
Carly.
Yeah, you first.
You're about to tell like a story about how you and Wiz smoked 400 blunts with your grandma or something.
No, it's not about even Wiz. This will be my tiny little humble brag for short. Is that my on my mom's side, my grandfather's uncle is Lawrence Welk, who
Whoa.
is you people, the layman might know from the Baby Hands SNL skit. It's
Yeah.
Fred Armisen. It's that, but he had a variety show. And there's like a little museum for him in Stroudsburg, North Dakota.
I
and
debated whether having Lawrence Welk in this audio
That's
segment,
right.
but I was honestly like, I don't know if these guys like have any idea
exactly.
or any care.
It's
you
super
know?
hit or miss, and I wondered if it would come up, and then figured it maybe wouldn't, and knew I would bring it up anyway. So
For the people at home, how would you describe the tiny hands thing? Is maybe the best and the closest. Like he's like a band leader
yeah,
who
he's
like
a band director, I believe, a composer, and ran a variety show that was like, except everything is his band, and it just features singers doing folk songs, basically, like with vague costumes and premises. And he sort of, when on SNL, when they do ladies and gentlemen, whatever, like it just cuts back to him. He hosts. Yeah.
classic Lawrence Welk. Anthony, would you want to do a fun Don Pardo, Lawrence Welk as the musical guest?
Musical guest, Wiz Khalifa.
Uh-oh. You twisted that one like the end of a blunt.
I think Wiz Khalifa's fine. I think it's very, very representative of the early 2000s. Like classic time capsule shit. Takes me right back. Those early mixtapes were like super popular in my middle school and early high school days. Kush and OJ, I remember like dropping, and that was like a summer everyone was like blasting that constantly. And then, of course, like the popularity of Weed'em Boys and, Black and Yellow and all those other favorites. I've always found him I found him charming and he's fun, certainly, but he's a little corny. And I think that there was a long period of time where people were like, Wiz Khalifa was my favorite rapper. And that would tell you a lot about that person.
I think just like big Snoop Dogg fans at this point in his career, it's kind of corny and lame to just be like, my entire personality is that weed exists and like that's it, I'm like, okay, fine, like weed is legal everywhere. It's like, oh, my whole personality is that I like Jack Daniels. Like, you suck. That's super boring. By the way, and I am sorry about this, but Carly, when you opened that closet in your grandma's house, did anything ever say Weed'em toys? Anyway, Anthony, do you
No, I have no ill will for Wiz Khalifa, but just kind of a cornball in my opinion, but also one of the most iconic laughs in music.
Yeah, you want to do an impression, anyone? Okay.
I have a pretty good joke here. Maybe Wiz Khalifa would have had better luck in his marriage if he married Prairie Rose.
That is a pretty good joke.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to this next one, which I warn you guys, get your legs ready. This is a bit of a walk. That is Mimi Indians from the film Kadgam, written by an artist named Honey. The song is featured in the Bollywood film Kadgam, a part of the Indian movie, I don't know.
Canon?
No, I mean the industry over there, it's very large. And that was that was a song that exploded in popularity in India during the time of this film's release. The movie's about religious tensions between Hindus and Muslims and the wannabe actor who gets trapped in the middle of it. Now, why are we listening to it? Well, you probably heard me say it earlier. It was written and composed by an artist named Honey. Honey? Well, did you know that North Dakota has been the #1 supplier of honey in America for the last 15 years?
Wow.
I didn't.
Yep. In 2017, North Dakota produced over 33 million pounds of honey valued at nearly $77 million.
Wow, that fact was pretty sweet.
Ooh, I like that. And I also stan a queen. All beekeepers in the state are licensed by the government and are constantly monitored by the state to ensure healthy bee colonies and environmentally positive honey production. You ever notice any beehives out there when you went there in the summers?
No, my dad's allergic to wasps. That is tangentially related. No, I know it's, oil and egg is king in North Dakota. And I actually just learned a fact yesterday I was watching Tuca and Birdie. Shout out. It's actually pretty good. Bummed it was canceled.
Yeah,
I'm really enjoying it. And there's a throwaway joke that bees have adapted to survive on pastries.
What?
And I just feel like that's so random to not be true.
Wait, hold on. Is that was it a joke or was it?
How like shoehorning in fucked up historical facts like they do that on like Broad City and The Good Place.
Sure. I wonder if bees like can land on I don't know, pan au chocolat and collect enough sugar and chocolat to bring back to their queen.
It's crazy that your dad is allergic to wasps. It seems like North Dakota is pretty full of wasps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, very waspy.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, bees take care of the earth. North Dakota takes care of the bees. So can we conclude that North Dakota is taking care of the world? Obviously, the bees are good. The pipeline bad. Where do we stand? Somewhere in the middle?
My cousin actually married the man who's currently the mayor of Bismarck. So it would be, which I should have shared during the other segment.
Yeah. You are
I'm not related to him. I am through marriage. I'm related to Lawrence Welk by blood. I'm related to the mayor of Bismarck through marriage.
Is there a chance that everyone in North Dakota is related at some point? We're getting pretty deep in there.
Who knew that North Dakota would be so tied to the song Black and Yellow, crude oil and honey?
Well, you know, she found her honey in North Dakota, huh? Romantic.
Oh, you mean
my
her?
cousin? Yeah.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. Well, maybe it's time to move on. Before we go any further, I hope everything you guys have said in this episode is true and you didn't lie to me.
But right now, baby, let me pretend that our love will never end. Lie to me. Come on, baby, go ahead, lie to me. You know
Ooh, that was Johnny Lang. The song was called Lie to Me, but I promise, Anthony, it has nothing to do with the canceled Tim Roth show on Fox.
Oh, fuck.
Johnny Lang is an American blues singer born in Fargo, North Dakota. Carly, I saw you grooving a little bit. Do you have any knowledge of Johnny Lang whatsoever?
No way.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Johnny started playing guitar at the age of 12, which he turned out to be ridiculously gifted with. Only 2 years later, he was signed to A&M Records. His first album, released when he was just 14, went multi-platinum and rocketed this blues boy into the stratosphere. That song, Lie to Me in particular, like the music video is him with this Jonathan Taylor Thomas haircut, no shoes on, and the biggest like Janko jeans you've ever seen in your life. And he's just like jamming out. And it's crazy because he's singing that song, but the voice sounds very like bluesy older gentleman. But that is a 14-year-old boy singing.
What the fuck?
That's right.
Are you serious?
That song was a 14-year-old boy?
Look, Sway Lee's an adult and sounds like a kid. Couldn't Johnny Lang be the opposite?
That's insane.
Yep, it is insane. He became such a big deal that he even got to appear in the universally hated film Blues Brothers 2000. 2,000 reasons for us to love Johnny Lang, though. All of his darn hits, which you guys feel free to name off, any of them.
The only hit that I know is Off a Bong.
Oh my God, what the fuck is happening?
Tim is such a hot comedian now. We got Matt Besser coming on next week. Tim's trying to get in with him. Well, since then, Johnny Lang has had 5 albums on the Billboard Top 50, won a Grammy for the 2006 album Turn Around, and still tours and travels to this day doing a lot of really good charitable work for North Dakota, in particular, artists there, and then also environmental work. It's weird to think that a young little white kid from North Dakota became like a blues sensation in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I personally, no idea who this was, never heard of them before, probably never will hear them again. But I mean, guys, any thoughts on blues music in general? Do you think North Dakota could be, while it's politically red, described as a blues state?
Bluegrass,
yeah. I mean, I think we were all like headbanging to this song. It was pretty good. It was pretty dope.
It is a good song.
Yeah, it was fun to listen to.
Let me ask you, Carly, what kind of blues were you struggling with when you were 14? What was the biggest problem in your life?
14.
Mhm.
What color my band should be on my braces.
Ooh.
I was growing out a pixie cut at the time, which was
Damn.
cute, but I had a bowl cut. I had a bowl cut for the 8th grade graduation.
Bowl cut and brace.
Yeah. So
Tough year.
What color did you wind up picking?
I got to change them every month, so sometimes I'd make it seasonal, like red and green for Christmas.
Yeah,
And a lot of
for
times,
sure.
a lot of times I just went purple, but a lot of
Wow.
times I went just silver. I want them off as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
Hell yeah. Let me ask you, Tim, you'll probably enjoy this, what with all your weed love, but would it surprise you to know that when I had braces for 2 months, I had Rasta colors in my mouth?
Oh,
Yes,
sick.
that does make sense. My teeth, black and yellow all day, baby.
Oh,
Hey.
yikes. That's not good. In fact, with yellow teeth like that, you're probably prone to an infection. And when you have an infection, you know what that leads to.
When her daddy tried to kill him, she said, Daddy, oh, don't you dare give me fever.
Oh, God.
With
Carly.
his kisses, fever when he holds me tight.
Carly found some stank on this one.
I'm his missus.
Wow. You a big fan of Peggy Lee?
Yeah, I like this song.
I mean, yeah, this is the Peggy Lee song that I think everybody knows. And with a song that smoking hot, I can't be the only one feeling a fever at the table. Wow. That was Peggy Lee, who was born in Jamestown, North Dakota, under the name Norma Dolores Egstrom, which kind of makes sense why she changed it when entering the entertainment industry. She became an international superstar after her sultry purr was noticed in a North Dakota club known as The Buttery. Speaking of The Buttery, Tim, great job on the taste segment. Her first album was titled Mañana, and she performed its tunes on late-night shows for months, becoming a household name. And yes, this woman is...
Mañana, she's not Latinx.
No, not in any way.
No,
Her name is Peggy Lee.
Yeah, it means morning and tomorrow.
Exactly.
It has to be the name of my title.
Well, she is today and the future. Remember that. The success that all those late night performances brought essentially made her like this household name and created a bunch of multiple hits in the 50s that led to a short acting career as well. You guys might know her. She was nominated for an Oscar after playing a booze-hound singer in Pete Kelly's Blues, which is a very 50s sounding movie. And she also voiced the racist Siamese cats in Disney's Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you guys remember those cats?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're being famously replaced by Janelle Monáe songs in the new live-action Lady and the Tramp, which, cross our fingers, Anthony, you auditioned to play the Italian restaurant owner in that, right?
Yeah, and they said that I was too authentic.
Do you guys have any thoughts about Peggy Lee?
Peggy Lee fucking rocks. I think her voice is amazing. I think that's obviously a strike on her record. Bad career choice. But one thing that I was interested in, I wanted to get this in here. You mentioned Buttery, huh? The Buttery is the name of the cafeteria at my high school, the Albany Academy.
Why? Because you're eating each other's butts all the time?
Loser.
That's just like an old military term. Not a military school by the time that I was attending it, but it was a Buttery. You would go downstairs and go up to Tom and ask him for a heaping plate of Mexican pizza.
Why are we talking
So it
about
isn't a military term. That's funny.
Yeah. What? So, Anthony, going to a military school, did you ever, going to a military academy, did you ever feel the need to shine your buttons and stand up straight? And what's happened since then?
Yeah, I've just gone down a bad path. Another link between Albany Academy and North Dakota. Some of Theodore Roosevelt's relatives went there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Very cool.
Well, the Roosevelt Mansion, of course, famously in New York, all those rich-ass Roosevelts, and I assume some of them were sent out to the Albany Academy to learn how to poke with swords and shoot guns.
Yeah, but enough about the school.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the tunes.
You can't spell Roosevelt without blowing two big fat smoke rings.
We remember. Tim.
Peggy Lee's fun to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I think her voice is pretty, I would say at its time, one of a kind. It's like now it's what just I imagine lounge singers sound like. And it's like so provocative and like sexy and soft and different that like if this sound came around when it's the 40s where like the other female singers at the time were like, the honky-tonky bugle boy, a company B, like that kind of thing. Like this feels so much more intense and intimate. And I think, I don't know, there's a reason that you succeed off of that. Any other feelings on Peggy Lee before you move on?
Do you think that Company B was making oil or honey? Wow. A pregnant pause that Camden's got to leave in.
Pregnant.
Shit.
Wow. Whoa. That one crushed. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our final piece of audio. Just about as sad as that pause. Camden, hit it.
My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw? I said, not today. I got a lot to do. He said, that's okay. And he walked away, but his smile never dimmed. Said, I'm gonna be like him. Yeah, you know I'm gonna be like him.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man in the moon. Okay. That was, of course, Cats in the Cradle by the famous Harry Chapin. Or maybe Chapin. I don't know. Another fake name that I made up. No, fake man. It's a song about the brutal perils of fatherhood and missing out on your child's life. And I know what you guys are thinking. Was Chapin from North Dakota? No. So why are we listening to this song? Well, I hope your legs aren't tired from that other long walk we took. Listen to this. Well, when a father ignores their son to go on a business trip instead of playing catch, do you know what that father says when walking out the door?
Bye, son.
Exactly, that's right. We're going to talk about the American bison.
NDSU.
North Dakota played an important part in preserving the dwindling population of American bison in the early 20th century. The bison was saved by the first environmental conservationists who we've talked about earlier and whose relatives apparently learned how to do military stuff with Anthony at school, Theodore Roosevelt. He loved North Dakota, and he mentioned multiple times that he thought North Dakota was one of the most beautiful states in the Union, and there's this is very depressing. There's a photo you can look up online of one of Theodore Roosevelt's diary pages, and it's the day that within 12 hours his daughter and then his wife died in unconnected ways. Like they just randomly happened. And he wrote on a page, "The light has gone out of my life." And that's it. And it's just the saddest thing in the world. But after he lost those two people, he took a very long recuperation holiday. Where else? North Dakota. And fell in love with the state, fell in love with the idea of the bison as this great American ideal. And at that time, their population had dwindled to under 1,000 before Roosevelt enacted hefty fines on hunters and put aside massive amounts of money for the Bison Protection Act. To quote the great mustache president himself, its toughness and hardy endurance fitted it to contend with purely natural forces, to resist cold and wintry blasts or the heat of the thirsty summer, to wander away to new pastures, to plunge over the broken ground, and to plow its way through snow drifts or quagmires. Giggity, giggity. You're welcome, Anthony. These days, there are more than 500,000 bison grazing in the Great White North Dakota, leading some historians to ask, "Damn, bison, how'd you survive that?"
Nice.
Yeah, we've been mentioning them this whole time, and they are sort of like, I would say, an integral part of the symbolism of the state of North Dakota. I also noticed your pronunciation of it was slightly different than I'd ever heard before. You earlier, very bison.
Mhm.
Is that how? I'm so sorry, I'm burping up the buttery right now.
I think it is I don't know if it's the or it's certainly an alternate pronunciation. My parents say it. So.
I would trust your parents over anyone at this
of the
table.
three, yeah.
I also had to say bye, son, to make the joke work,
Yes.
which was so fucking funny that we could barely get through this rest of the episode.
Yeah, and I thought the North Dakota flag was a bison because they do fly. So I was like, am I whack? Am I remembering this?
Wait,
right?
hold on.
What did you say?
In my mind, there is a flag that has a bison on it. I thought the North Dakota flag had a bison on it.
Did you say you thought bison could fly?
No. Oh, no. I've seen the flag flying before. Or maybe I'm confusing it with the California flag with the bear.
No,
but for some reason.
We recently...
Wyoming
was
the
the
previous
state.
episode.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have the outline of a bison on
Yes.
there. Yeah, but I would say between those two things, I guess they're very similar states in terms of their geography and location. But North Dakota apparently is responsible for essentially keeping this animal from extinction. And while what they're doing with the pipeline currently is pretty anti-environmental, that is a check mark on the positive
Very
for me.
cool.
Yeah.
Have either of you been up close to one before?
No.
I've
Yeah.
never seen it.
Yeah.
They're mighty. We
They
were driving
are.
in South Dakota
Yeah.
doing a family trip, and then one clomped next to us, and we rolled down our window just a little bit, and what a machine.
You know
Wow.
when it I don't know if you experience this, but when its breath comes out of its
Yes.
nose and hits you,
Yeah.
and it
Yes,
feels
it's
like someone
cartoonish.
it's like the hottest, biggest air. It's like what a
Moist.
dinosaur must feel like
Yeah.
breathing at you.
Yeah, they're super dangerous too. They kill a lot of people
Yeah.
if they're
Bison
irresponsibly
selfies.
approached.
Yeah, recently there was that video of a 4-year-old girl who got tossed 40 feet in the air
Oh,
by a
man.
bison because her dad tried to get a picture with her her and the bison.
Oh, man.
And like the bison starts to charge a little bit, and the dad just books it away and leaves his daughter there to get hit by a giant animal.
Wow.
Girl,
Damn.
totally okay. Obviously a little injured and probably terrified of these great American animals. But
And
yeah,
famously,
and
there was a Geico commercial where people were surrounded by a bunch of bison.
famously there was, and I believe they. I think they yelled nationwide. How did they bring their agent into the car?
Oh, it was a State Farm commercial, and they said, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. And their agent appeared, and they were scared in the car, and then they all said it together, and they disappeared again.
Yeah.
Something I sometimes wish we could do from this podcast studio.
Yeah, I mean, the bison are facing extinction, and kids these days are not caring enough. Perhaps, much like Tim, it's time for a rebrand. Let's call it XXX Tinction.
Hold on. One
Yeah,
more
that one
time.
missed
Try
me.
it again. Yeah.
So kids these days don't care much about the extinction of animals. Maybe it's time for a rebrand. Let's call it XXX Tinction.
You said the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm
again.
still confused as to what exactly you're trying to get at.
Yeah, XXX Tentacion, of course, popular with today's youth.
That's not the part I'm
Yikes.
confused about.
Yeah.
Tinctacion?
XXX
Yes.
Tinction. Yeah, extinction.
Oh. Okay. Well, now it's funny.
I just won't say anything for the rest of the episode.
That's okay, because we are coming into the the last stretch of it. And before we go, Carly, I have to ask you, out of 420 blunts smoked straight to the dome, how many blunts does my audio segment get? And keep in mind, a few of those sucked.
Oh, totally. Let's go with an even 175, enough to get into Harvard.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Thank you.
Guys.
175 blunts, famously what it takes to get into Harvard.
This is some of the lowest average score we've had across an episode of this podcast.
It is tough.
Yeah.
We've had perfect pods in the past, but I'm glad that we finally have a guest on who's willing to tell me that my segment is not good. And I need to hear that more often than I do.
Well,
Yeah.
Stu, congratulations on your 175 blunts to the face. Really just a lot of marijuana there. So we're going to move on to our next regular segment, our last regular segment, where we explore North Dakota with our hearts. So we're going to go around in the circle, starting with Anthony, to Carly, to Stuart, then to myself, to talk about how North Dakota makes us feel. Anthony?
North Dakota is not a state that really has ever occurred to me to visit, and I probably will never go there. Nothing against it. I was actually really pleasantly surprised to learn about the really interesting history of the state and some of the really cool wildlife pieces and art installations. But overall, it just doesn't seem that interesting. And the fact that it's a red state that condones such corporate greed as the pipeline, at the direct expense of, its native population, it's not really one that I'm like rushing to book a ticket to. I'm sorry to say it. It's kind of just as interesting as South Dakota. And I kind of had a middling reaction to that as well. But it doesn't really have its version of Mount Rushmore, that one big staple that's drawing you in. I don't hate the state at all, but I'm just not thrilled by it. And that's fine. It's totally fine.
Carly.
This state serves as sort of a small history novel for my little family. I have a big nostalgia pull for it. When I think of North Dakota, I think of the sound of my grandma and grandpa's laughter.
Aw,
Oh my gosh.
that touched my heart.
Oh my God.
They aren't even my grandparents. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Um,
Stuart.
I think North Dakota is actually a lot like the toy closet we've been talking about this entire episode. I think it might have a little bit of a smell that's a little dusty and old, perhaps slightly forgotten by many. Maybe a tiny bit of dust on it from no play on these toys in quite some time. The population might be aging. They're becoming more red. Their views are becoming a little lost in the past of society. But I do think that with the proper scrub and the proper player, I think that this state could be a great toy. I think it's beautiful. I think it has a lot of natural resources. And we can't discount these bees. So overall, I'd have to say that this is a state that needs to be donated to someone who maybe appreciates it a little more than leaving my toys in the bottom of the closet. I'd like to see this state go to people who can reshape it and find new joy in the future, as opposed to maybe staying in those Rough Rider past days. Play on, I say, whether that's baseball or toys or listening to this podcast.
Oh my gosh. North Dakota. I don't have any anecdotes about North Dakota except my Dee Snider story, which I already burned on the podcast. So I'm going to use my touch segment to express my anger about the Keystone XL pipeline. Absolutely fucking ridiculous, y'all. It's a fucking disaster out there that's happening right now. I'm reading online 383,000 gallons of oil spilled in North Dakota. That's crazy. And something that it only happened within the past couple of weeks of recording this episode. And that's like the amount of news that's on it is underwhelming.
It should also be noted that this is not the first leak that this pipeline has
I learned
had.
about this at bar trivia.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to fucking talk about the fact that everybody who was protesting up there was 100% correct.
It's absurd. It's been leaking since 2010. 2015 had a huge leak. 2016 had a huge leak. 2019 is like the biggest leak, and no one's going to get in trouble for it.
With all these leaks, what is this, Kanye's studio?
Man, I don't know. If you have any questions or concerns about the Great 50 States, reach out to us on Twitter at StatesmanPod, on Facebook and Instagram at Statesman Podcast, or by email at statesmanpodcast@gmail.com. Please like, rate, subscribe, and share the show with your friends and family because it helps the show out a lot. Carly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Bye, son.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is fun.
Do you have anywhere that we can find you online or have any shows that you want to plug?
Yes, certainly. You can request to follow me on Twitter
Ooh,
at Carly Schirb, CARSCHIRB. My Herald team Stork can be found at Storkstagram, and we play at the IO Theater.
It's such a fun team. So many great folks on it. Friends of the podcast. And it's just a blast. You guys are so funny.
Thank you.
Oh, and people should also listen to you on a previous Statesman alum, Spencer Rose's podcast.
Yes, watch the Geek Out episode. We're talking Mickey D's, baby.
Oh, it's so much fun. That's a great episode. Go download that.
Very, very exciting. Carly, I want to thank you again for coming here and being with us to walk through this state that probably has a lot of like really positive connections to your childhood.
Yeah.
And I hope we didn't present it in such a bad light with all these blunts, this terrible music. It's just been an absolute pleasure to have you. You are a bubbling ray of light. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Stu, Anthony, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, I mean, before we get to Anthony, and I know he has something to plug, want to plug my Twitter and Instagram, both at Stuart Highcar.
Jesus
My Twitter's
Christ.
blowing up. Just went hyper viral yesterday, guys. I'm talking like PFT on the DL, baby. Sending me DMs about my content. And of course, my Instagram, you won't be able to see any content except one post. And once I accept you, you're going to be able to see all the hottest stuff that I post every day, a couple times an hour. So that's at Stuart Highcar on just about every platform. If you're not following me now, then you're falling behind. Anthony?
Hell yeah. There are 2 more performances left of Public Decay of Affection. You have to see this show. The tickets are pretty much guaranteed to sell out. You got to jump on tickets right away if you want to catch them. I know that the Thanksgiving weekend is a tough one for a lot of people who are going to be out of state. Fly back or take a train for this damn show. I'm telling you, it's worth it. The show really, really is at its peak when we have a sold out house. We all go extra hard. And for the final 2 performances, I'm going to pretty much put every piece of energy I have into it while it lasts. So don't miss out on it. And then another fun show we've got coming up. Tim and I are hosting Pasta Night on Sunday, the 24th. We've got some great comedians coming out to join us. Jump on tickets for that right away. Tim, what's the name of that place that we're hosting it in Logan Square?
It's called Kip Studios. I believe it's 1902 North Milwaukee. Please,
wow.
Yeah, please make your way through. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing Pasta Night with some great guests, and then we're going to be screening The Godfather Part 1.
It's a 4-hour-long event.
Yeah.
That you don't have to
Jesus.
stay all the way through.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to stay all the way through, but just for the novelty of it, come the fuck through. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, by the way, any theater that has a 4-hour block of time they're trying to fill up, make sure to contact us, Statesman Boys. We'll show somebody else's movie.
You can also find Anthony's Second City show at secondcity.com/shows/Chicago/public-decay-of-affection /
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. On behalf of my junior statesman, Anthony Rossi, and Stuart Highcar, I'm your elder statesman, Tim Ferrari. State positive.
We them North!
Yeah.
Yeah.